Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Dark secrets swirl behind locked doors. One ordinary evening turned into the darkest revelation of my life. A single text, a single reckless grin changed everything. Never did I expect the woman I cherished to sever our vows. They called it a minor fling, but it shattered my trust forever. Shame, rage, and sorrow consumed me. No one saw it coming, not even me. Court battles, hidden finances soon followed. All I wanted was to protect my children from the fallout. Now I stand trembling on the edge of a terrifying new beginning or final collapse. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. I always used to think my family life was about as normal as it could get. My name is Ethan Maxwell, and for the past 15 years I've been living in suburban Springfield with my wife Karen and our two kids, Carol and Jared. I'm a mechanical engineer by day, a car enthusiast by weekend, and up until recently someone who believed in a routine that rarely wavered. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I first felt something was off. I'd clocked out of work right on time, hopped in my Jeep, and took the familiar highway exit that led me through 3 stoplights and a quiet residential street before pulling into our driveway. Usually, I'd find Karen fussing around the kitchen, maybe checking her email or sorting laundry while the kids wrapped up their homework. But that afternoon, I walked into a hush I couldn't quite place. Karen was at the dining table, phone in hand, tapping rapidly. She was so engrossed she didn't look up until I called her name. The glance she gave me was curt and startled, as though I'd interrupted something important. Normally, she'd rush over to greet me, or at the very least, give me a warm, tired smile. This time, she flipped her phone face down and said, "Hey," in a dismissive tone. She seemed preoccupied, like she had a million things going on inside her head, none of which involved me. I dropped my work bag by the couch. "Everything okay?" I asked, slipping out of my jacket. A simple question, but it was enough to make her brows knit. "Yeah, I'm fine," she replied quickly. "Just had a long day." From the corner of the dining room, I could see Jared's black Android backpack lying open but no sign of my son. Carol's bag was nowhere to be found. Karen's phone vibrated against the table, and her eyes darted down. She pressed her lips together before flipping it silent. There was an unease in her expression that made me feel like I'd walked into a private conversation. "Where are the kids?" I asked. "Carol has drama club practice until 5. Jared's in his room. He, wasn't feeling great when he got home." Before I could ask more, Karen stood up. "I'll start dinner," she said, as if to close the subject. She walked into the kitchen, leaving her phone behind on the table. For a fleeting second, I considered peeking at the screen. It was right there, unguarded. But that felt wrong. Karen had never given me a reason not to trust her. In 15 years, we'd always been open about just about everything. Yet something about the way she guarded that device, my gut told me not to ignore it. I busied myself checking mail, a typical stack of bills, grocery flyers, and a dentist appointment reminder for Carol. I sorted them into piles, trying to distract myself from that small but persistent worry creeping into my mind. Karen wasn't one to hide things. Maybe she was planning a surprise for my birthday next month, though that explanation felt forced, even in my own head. Half an hour later, we were seated around the dining table, just the two of us. Jared popped in for a brief second, grabbing a glass of water, claiming he needed to lie down. I caught a glimpse of his flushed cheeks and looked questioningly at Karen. She offered a vague shrug, as though dealing with Jared was fully my job. Odd. Usually she'd fuss over him like crazy. The meal was roast chicken and vegetables. It was something we'd made dozens of times together, but she seemed lost in her own thoughts. I made some small talk about a design project at the office. She half listened, cutting her chicken into tiny pieces. At one point, she rubbed her temple as if trying to ward off a headache. "Are you feeling okay?" I tried again. Karen sighed. "I'm fine, Ethan. Just tired of the same old, same old. Work's a drag. Getting older doesn't help either." Then she laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. "I noticed a couple more gray hairs this morning. Isn't that lovely?" I reached over to brush a strand of her dark hair. "You look great to me." It was the truth. She'd always been effortlessly attractive. Maybe that was part of why this sudden shift felt so jarring. She gave me a brief half-smile but didn't reply. Right as we were cleaning up, Carol came bouncing in the front door, a swirl of teenage energy. "Dad! Mom! You won't believe the new set we're building for the play. It's massive!" She skidded to a stop in front of us, her eyes bright. A sophomore in high school, Carol was brimming with curiosity and creativity. She had Karen's cheekbones and her own brand of unstoppable enthusiasm. "Hey, sweetie," Karen said, leaning over for a hug. Carol kissed her on the cheek, then rushed to me. "Dad, I might need help this weekend. The stage manager wants me to design some mechanical pulleys to shift a backdrop. You think you can show me how?" "Sure," I said, relieved to sense some normalcy again. "We'll work something out." Carol tossed her bag onto a chair, breathless. "You guys started dinner without me? I guess I'll just scrounge up leftovers, huh?" She teased us gently, rummaging in the fridge. Then she shot a glance at Karen. "Mom, you okay? You seem quiet." Karen turned, forced a smile. "I'm fine, honey. Just a little headache. You know me, headaches are my specialty." Carol frowned. "You should get that checked out. My bio teacher says chronic headaches can be—" "I'm fine," Karen said again, voice sharper than usual. Carol's eyes flicked to me, searching for an explanation, but I just shrugged helplessly. After dinner, while Carol went to her room to catch up on homework, I attempted to help Karen with the dishes. She insisted on doing them alone, so I let her be. The entire evening felt disconnected, like we were all puzzle pieces that no longer fit together. I tried to brush it off. Maybe Karen was simply experiencing midlife stress, but even that logic felt flimsy. She had never been this distant before. I ended the night doing an extra check on Jared. Poor kid was asleep, half tangled in blankets, a mild fever. I put a hand on his forehead. "We'll see a doctor if you're not better in the morning," I murmured, not wanting to wake him. Then I quietly backed out of his room. That night, as I settled into bed, I heard Karen softly talking in the hallway. Her voice was hushed. Curious, I rose and inched the door open a crack. She stood there with her cell pressed to her ear, whispering. I couldn't catch everything, but I heard her say, "No, he doesn't suspect a thing. And yes, tomorrow works." When she turned and saw the door ajar, she quickly ended the call and pretended to be scrolling social media. Caught off guard, I decided to address it. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. "Nobody," she said lightly, slipping the phone into her pajama pocket. "A coworker. Sorry if I woke you." She switched off the hallway light and came to bed. I stared at the ceiling, my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't fully understand. Karen next to me, so close, yet feeling miles away, was a kind of ache I'd never known before. I tried to tell myself I was being paranoid, but the seeds of doubt had been planted. "Good night," she whispered, turning her back to me. "Night," I replied, though I didn't sleep for a long time. I lay there wide awake, troubled by a strange sense of foreboding I couldn't shake. 2 days later, a small moment crystallized my suspicions. I returned from work around 6 in the evening to find no dinner on the table, unusual for Karen, who was typically prompt about meal schedules. Instead, she was in our bedroom with the door half shut, on the phone again. She froze when I walked in. With a forced smile, she said, "Give me 1 minute," into the receiver, then ended the call. She pretended it was just a telemarketer but wouldn't look me in the eye. I noticed then that she'd gotten a fresh manicure, a deep red color she almost never wore. Karen was always fairly practical. Short nails, pastel shades, rarely anything bold. My mind flicked back to her remark about feeling older and the bouquet of flowers that had mysteriously arrived earlier in the week, which she claimed was a wrong delivery. Something was changing right in front of me, but she wouldn't let me in on the truth. And so, as I prepared for bed that night, I realized that my ancestral world might be teetering on a hidden edge. Karen's aloofness, her phone calls, the tension in her face, they were small cracks, but cracks nonetheless. I kept telling myself that families go through phases, that stress does odd things. Still, I couldn't chase away the nagging feeling that those cracks would soon split wide open, forcing me to see what lay beneath. In the quiet, I replayed every offhand moment, how Karen turned her phone screen away, how she gave short answers, how her excuses sounded too easy. My pulse pounded as I struggled not to jump to conclusions, but I could sense that this was just the beginning of something bigger and far more troubling. Little did I know just how right that intuition was, and how much pain these small cracks would eventually bring. That following Thursday, I found myself lingering at my office long after my official shift ended. My coworker, Jackson Lee, was finishing up some engineering schematics across the desk from me. We were the last two in the building, the floor lights dim, the hum of the HVAC system louder than usual in the empty space. "You're off the clock, man," Jackson said, rubbing his eyes. "Why are you still here?" I glanced at the clock on the computer. "No rush to get home tonight," I replied, though my chest felt heavy as I said it. "Karen's going through a thing." Jackson raised an eyebrow. "A thing?" I shrugged, trying to downplay the sting of my own words. "She's distant. Keeps odd hours, makes excuses when she's late, just feels weird." For a moment, Jackson studied me quietly. He was a straightforward guy, never one for sugarcoating. "Ethan," he said, "you ever think she might be seeing someone else?" That question slapped me in the face like a cold hand. "No, I mean she's never. That's not her," I stammered. "I'm sure it's just stress at work, right? Or maybe midlife worries. She keeps complaining about aging." Jackson drummed his fingers on the desk. "Could be. But be careful. I've seen good marriages go south because one person gets bored or insecure and starts looking for attention elsewhere. You're a decent guy, but don't be naive." His bluntness stung, but something in me still wanted to defend Karen. "She'd never do that," I insisted, though a sliver of doubt gnawed at me. Jackson flipped through the blueprint we'd been analyzing for a new prototype. "I hope I'm wrong," he said, packing up, "but keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open." Those words echoed in my head as I finally shut down my computer. Outside, the sun had dipped low, leaving the sky a dusky gray. I drove home with the radio off, my mind churning. Was I missing red flags? Or was I letting suspicion twist a normal situation into something ugly? When I arrived, I noticed Karen wasn't in. In fact, the house was dark except for a single lamp in the living room where Jared was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone. "Hey, buddy," I said. "Where's your mom?" He shrugged, not taking his eyes off the screen. "Said she had some errands. That was like 2 hours ago. Carol's at a friend's place. They're working on a biology project." I flicked on the kitchen light. No dinner, no note. I checked my phone, no messages. An odd emptiness welled up in my chest. "She didn't say what errands?" Jared finally looked up. "I think she mentioned groceries, but like we have groceries. I don't really get it, Dad." He paused, then added softly, "Is everything okay with you two?" I forced a smile. "We're fine, just busy. How about I order us a pizza?" I didn't want to drag Jared into adult worries. "Sure," he mumbled, returning his attention to whatever video he was watching. But the concern in his eyes lingered. Jared was quieter than Carol, more introspective, and I could tell he felt the tension just as much as I did. I ordered a pepperoni pizza, then flicked on the TV, trying to fill the silence with mindless noise. At some point, Jared retreated to his bedroom, phone in hand, not wanting to watch the news. Time crawled. An hour passed. Another half hour. I rechecked my messages. Nothing. The pizza arrived. I offered Jared a slice. He shook his head and said he'd already snacked on chips. When the front door finally creaked open, it was almost 9 p.m. Karen stepped inside, balancing 2 plastic grocery bags as though to prove she'd done exactly what she'd said. The overhead light fell across her face, illuminating a faint flush in her cheeks, like she'd been rushing or like adrenaline coursed through her veins. "Oh, you're home," she said, startled, as if she hadn't expected to see me on a weeknight. Her tone was casual, but her eyes darted around. I grabbed a few things. I nodded at the bags. "I ordered pizza. It's cold now, but—" She dismissed it with a wave. "I'm not hungry. I ate a sandwich on the way." That same forced smile flickered. The tension in the air was thick. I wanted to ask point-blank where she really was, but I held back. Maybe that's what Jackson meant by "don't be naive." I decided to be direct, stepping closer to her. "Karen, are you okay?" Her expression stiffened. I told you, I'm fine. Can we not do this tonight? Do what? Talk? I replied, voice brittle. We used to be able to talk about anything. Lately, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. She placed the grocery bags on the counter, ignoring the question. I'm going to put these away. Then I'm heading to bed. I'm exhausted. And with that, she scooped the bags up and disappeared into the kitchen. I heard cupboards open and shut quickly, as if she was venting frustration on them. I glanced down the hall toward Jared's room. He was likely listening. I decided it wasn't worth a shouting match. Instead, I headed to our bedroom, the swirl of Jackson's cautionary words echoing in my mind, the anger, confusion, and a nagging fear all jumbled together. That night, I didn't fall asleep easily. Karen slipped into bed after midnight, reeking faintly of fresh perfume. She claimed she couldn't sleep without showering first. When she finally lay beside me, the gap between us felt like a canyon. I stared into the darkness, my heart pounding, asking myself if I had the courage to find real answers. The next day at work, I confided more in Jackson than I probably should have. Over a lukewarm coffee in the break room, I admitted I'd started checking our joint bank account. There were new, small withdrawals from an ATM across town, an area I didn't recognize. Jackson, sipping his black coffee, set it down with a sigh. Ethan, man, I hate to say it, but you might want to— Don't. I cut him off. I know what you're going to say, just don't. He spread his hands in a gesture of surrender. All right. But you're not going to fix it by pretending it isn't real. That afternoon, a coworker named Cindy dropped by my cubicle. Hey, Ethan, she said softly. You all right? You seem distant lately. I forced a laugh that sounded hollow. Guess I have a lot on my mind. She nodded sympathetically. Well, if you need to talk, you know where to find me. Then she was gone, leaving me with my uneasy thoughts. By evening, I was running on fumes. Karen had texted me, I'll be home late. Don't wait for me. No explanation, no apology. For the first time in 15 years, I felt a flicker of anger that overshadowed my confusion. She was shutting me out completely. Something had changed in the past few weeks, and it wasn't just a midlife crisis. I thought about confronting her, but each time I pictured the conversation, I saw her shutting down, turning it back on me, claiming I was smothering her. Meanwhile, I recalled her words on the phone. No, he doesn't suspect a thing. Maybe I'd been not suspecting for too long. Still, half of me believed maybe it was all a misunderstanding. After all, we had 2 wonderful kids, a comfortable home, and a marriage that spanned a decade and a half. Could that really unravel so fast? That night, I scrolled through old photos on my phone, pictures of Karen smiling beside me on vacations, at the kids' birthdays, or just casual barbecue weekends. I felt a heaviness in my chest, a sorrowful nostalgia for the woman I thought I knew. What changed? As I browsed the pictures, I realized I was searching for signs, clues, maybe a moment when her smile faded or her eyes became vacant. But all I saw was the past, a time that felt bright and stable. Now I couldn't even remember the last time she laughed around me. Closing my photo gallery, I stared at the darkness outside my window. My reflection in the glass looked haggard, older. Karen wasn't the only one finding gray hairs, apparently. I sighed, thinking of Jared's worried face and Carol's naive cheerfulness. We owed them better, didn't we? Jackson's final advice of the day repeated in my mind, if you want answers, ask, but be ready for them. Despite the fear in my gut, I resolved that I had to talk to Karen soon, really talk, no more half measures. But a part of me dreaded that conversation because once a hidden truth is spoken, you can't unlearn it. Either it would confirm I was paranoid, or it would expose a betrayal I wasn't prepared to face. By Friday, a gnawing anxiety followed me wherever I went. It was like walking under a storm cloud that threatened to break at any moment. Karen was civil enough, but civil was the exact opposite of how I remembered our marriage. We used to be silly, spontaneously kissing in the kitchen, making sarcastic jokes about the neighbors who mowed their lawns at 6 a.m. We had inside jokes. Now, each word felt measured, forced. That evening, I arrived home to find the dining table set with neat placements, but the atmosphere was anything but cozy. Karen stood by the counter wearing a forced smile, while Carol busied herself sliding lasagna onto plates. Jared lingered by the fridge, rummaging for drinks. "Dad, you made it," Carol said warmly. "Come on, let's eat before it gets cold." I almost let out a relieved breath. Maybe Karen had decided to ease off whatever tension she'd been harboring. Maybe this was her olive branch. I hung my jacket and joined them at the table. For a moment, the four of us were together, the Maxwell family, as it should be. "How was everyone's day?" I ventured, unrolling my napkin. Carol launched into a story about her drama club. A new director was pushing them to add more comedic moments to what was originally a serious play. She was excited and gestured animatedly, nearly knocking over her water glass once or twice. Jared spoke up next, though quietly. "I got an A on my history quiz." He avoided looking at either me or Karen. I praised him for the good grade, but he just offered a half smile. Karen barely touched her food. She fiddled with her fork, her gaze flicking between Carol's enthusiastic chatter and the silent phone on the corner of the table. I could practically see her mind drifting. After a few minutes, she abruptly cut in. "Carol, slow down. You're talking a mile a minute." Carol paused, cheeks flushing. "Sorry, Mom. I'm just excited." "Nothing wrong with excitement," I said gently, giving Carol a reassuring nod. Karen cast me a look that I couldn't decipher, some mix of annoyance and weariness. Then she lifted her fork and pointed it at me. "Ethan, can we please not get on my case tonight?" It took me a moment to process her words. "I wasn't." She sighed dramatically. "You always do this. You take their side. You make me feel like I'm the cranky parent." Her tone was sharp, and the tension ratcheted up in an instant. Carol's face fell. "Mom, nobody's saying you're cranky." She let out a little laugh, trying to lighten the mood. "I was just talking about my day." Jared shifted uncomfortably, pushing food around on his plate. He mumbled, "It's fine. Let's just eat." I put my hands up in a gesture of peace. "Karen, relax. We're just having dinner as a family." Her eyes flashed with something like resentment. "Right, a family," she said, forcing a laugh. "Well, maybe I need some space sometimes. You ever think about that, Ethan? Maybe I'm allowed to have my own life." I shot a glance at Carol and Jared, who both looked stunned. I didn't want to argue in front of them, but the frustration inside me flared. "Karen, can we talk later? In private?" She let out a scoff. "Sure, we can talk whenever you want, as long as it's on your terms." For a few seconds, the only sounds in the room were the clink of silverware and Carol's nervous swallowing. I could see Jared's jaw tense. This was the part that hurt the most, watching the kids feel caught in the crossfire, confusion clear in their eyes. "Okay," Carol said softly. "Maybe I'll help Jared with that online math assignment upstairs, right, Jared?" Jared nodded, seizing the excuse to leave. "Yeah, sure." Within moments, they'd both vanished to the second floor, leaving me alone at the table with Karen. She dropped her fork, half-eaten lasagna untouched. "I'm going for a drive," she muttered, reaching for her phone. "Wait, Karen," I pleaded. "What's going on? The kids are worried about us. They can tell something's wrong." She paused, phone in hand, eyes downcast. Then she looked up, and for a second, there was real vulnerability in her gaze. "Ethan, you have to trust me," she said, almost whispering. "I'm not doing anything wrong. I just need time to figure things out." "Figure what out?" I asked softly, but she turned away. Without another word, she grabbed her keys and walked out the door. I heard the engine of her car roar to life and fade down the street. The leftover lasagna steamed on the table untouched. I cleaned up slowly, feeling numb. Once the dishes were done, I headed upstairs to check on the kids. The door to Carol's room was open. She was sprawled on the carpet, geometry textbook in front of her, while Jared scrolled through problem sets on a laptop. The tension downstairs had obviously rattled them. "You two doing okay?" I asked quietly, leaning against the doorframe. Carol looked up with sad eyes. "Dad, are you and Mom fighting?" The softness in her voice broke my heart. I mean, I know every couple argues sometimes, but this feels different. "It'll be all right," I said automatically, though I wasn't sure I believed it. "Your mom's just going through some stress at work, I think. We'll talk it out." Jared spoke up without glancing away from the screen. She says you're always controlling her, that you track her every move. Is that true? I blinked in surprise. No, I don't. Why would she say that? He shrugged. Mom says you've been acting weird lately, digging into her stuff, not giving her space. My pulse quickened. Was she referring to the fact that I'd logged into our joint bank account? But that had always been normal for us. Our finances were shared. The difference now was that I was paying closer attention to suspicious withdrawals. I forced a calm voice. Your mom might be feeling like I'm prying, but I promise you, I'm not controlling her. I just want to know why she's been so distant. Carol bit her lip. Dad, can you just fix this? I hate feeling all this tension. I'll try, I said gently, stepping over to ruffle her hair. She smiled weakly, then returned her focus to the geometry problem. Jared typed on the laptop, his face guarded. I left them alone, my stomach twisting in knots. Was Karen planting these ideas in their heads, painting me as the overbearing husband? The thought sent a spike of anger through me, followed by a pang of guilt. This was my family, my kids. My job was to protect them, not let them feel like they were caught in the middle of something ugly and unexplainable. I retreated to my bedroom, which now felt less like a sanctuary and more like a battlefield. The bed was neatly made, but Karen's nightstand was bare. I couldn't pinpoint why that struck me as odd until I remembered that she used to keep a reading lamp and some paperback novels there. Those items were gone. Maybe she moved them. Maybe she just tidied up. Still, it felt like a piece of her had physically pulled away from me. Restless, I stood by the window, looking out into the suburban night. Porch lights dotted the cul-de-sac, and the distant hum of a passing car reminded me that Karen was out there somewhere, driving aimlessly or maybe not aimlessly at all. I clenched my fists. We never used to keep secrets. But now the line between us seemed thick with shadows. At around 10, Carol knocked on my door. Dad, Jared and I are heading to bed. Mom's still not back? No, I said quietly. She said she needed a drive. She hesitated. If you talk to her, tell her I hope she's okay. My throat felt tight. I will. After Carol left, I sank onto the edge of the bed, a tide of worry washing over me. In the span of a few weeks, my role in this house had shifted from supportive partner to suspicious outsider. Even the kids were noticing. Karen's comment about wanting space played on repeat in my mind, mingling with the concern Carol voiced. Mom says you're controlling. That stung because it was the opposite of how I saw myself. I'd always tried to be accommodating, supportive, a good husband. A swirl of guilt, hurt, and anger pressed down on my chest. Was I missing something crucial about Karen's life? Could I be the one who'd been inattentive, driving her away? I thought of the nights I'd worked extra hours, the times I'd been too tired to do anything fun on weekends. Maybe she'd grown bored. The last thing I wanted was to blame everything on her if I was partially at fault. Yet no matter how I twisted it, her secrecy felt like a betrayal. The phone calls, the sudden late nights, the story about me being controlling. My instincts screamed that something was very wrong, but I still hoped it was all a misunderstanding we could fix if only she'd let me in. I considered texting her, but I knew she'd likely ignore it or respond with an irritable, "Leave me alone." So I sat in the near dark, the glow from the hallway casting shapes on the floor, until I heard the front door open downstairs. I glanced at the clock. 10:45 p.m. I waited, expecting her to come up and say something. An apology, or at least a tense, "I'm back." But she didn't. Instead, I heard the faint clink of a glass in the kitchen, water running in the sink, and then the house fell silent again. When I went downstairs to check, she was already gone to the spare room where she sometimes folded laundry. Suddenly, the knowledge that my kids were caught in a spiral of tension weighed heavier than ever. I realized that if Karen and I didn't address this soon, Carol and Jared would suffer the fallout. It wasn't fair to them. We were the adults. We needed to figure out a path forward or a path apart. In bed, I closed my eyes, haunted by the memory of Carol's shaky voice. "Dad, are you and Mom fighting? We never used to. Not like this." A hollow sense of loss gripped me as I imagined the fragile normalcy of our home cracking wide open, the kids forced to choose sides. That was the last thing I wanted. Yet the small signs kept pointing me in one grim direction. If Karen was lying to me, shutting me out, then the friction would only intensify. Sitting there in the dark, I promised myself I'd demand answers soon. I just prayed that by the time I found the courage to do it, it wouldn't already be too late. Saturday dawned with a hint of early spring warmth, but the atmosphere inside our house felt chilled. Karen and I barely exchanged words over morning coffee. She spent most of the breakfast scrolling on her phone, responding to messages that seemed far more important than any conversation with me. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I opened it to a teenage boy holding a bouquet of pale yellow roses. He wore a local florist's polo shirt and asked, "Delivery for Karen Maxwell?" Surprised, I signed for the flowers and carried them inside. Karen walked in from the living room, and for a second, I could have sworn she looked thrilled before quickly smoothing her expression into confusion. "Must be a mistake," she said curtly. "Probably meant for someone else." She tried to brush past me to take them out of my hands. "They're addressed to you," I pointed out, tapping the small card that read, "To Karen." She slipped the card out of the envelope, read it, and crumpled it immediately. "A friend from my office, maybe," she muttered. "Just a random gift. They do that sometimes." "That's unusual," I murmured. "Which friend?" She shot me a defensive look. "I don't know, Ethan. Don't interrogate me. Can't I have friends?" I opened my palms. "Hey, I'm not interrogating. Just seems weird no name is on the card." She snatched the bouquet and spun around, heading for the kitchen. I followed, noticing Carol quietly reading on the living room couch, trying not to stare, while Jared rummaged in the pantry, probably pretending not to listen. In the kitchen, Karen yanked open a cupboard, searching for a vase. The tension in her shoulders was obvious. "I'll just put these in water. Maybe I'll call the florist to see if it was a mix-up." I watched her rummage through the sink cabinet, thinking back to the earlier conversation Jackson had with me. The possibility that some other man was sending my wife roses churned my stomach, yet her blatant refusal to explain only fueled my suspicion. She slammed a glass vase on the counter, filling it from the tap. Then she set the roses inside. A forced smile crossed her lips. "All done," she said in a tone that suggested she wanted me to drop the subject. But I couldn't. Not anymore. "Karen," I said, voice low so the kids wouldn't overhear, "this is getting ridiculous. If something's going on, you need to tell me." She whirled around, face red. "You keep pushing me, Ethan, and you wonder why I need space. Let it go. They're just flowers." With that, she stormed out, leaving me alone in the kitchen, my insides churning. I steadied myself by bracing against the counter. My hand shook slightly as I thought, just flowers? Maybe. Or maybe not. After lunch, Carol headed out to a friend's birthday party, while Jared retreated upstairs. Karen mentioned she was meeting some girlfriends for coffee. That left me alone in the house. Not knowing what else to do, I sank onto the couch in the living room and stared at the silent TV. My gaze drifted to the vase of roses on the kitchen counter. The color was a cheery pastel, so out of place in this gloom. An hour passed. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Hey, Ethan, it's Kyle. I'm in town for the weekend. Want to grab a beer tonight?" Kyle was an old college buddy I hadn't seen in over a year. The idea of getting out of the house was appealing, especially given the oppressive vibe at home. I texted back a quick confirmation, setting up a meet at a local sports bar for around 7 p.m. At least it would take my mind off the tension with Karen. Maybe I'd even get some perspective from a friend who knew me before any of this started. That evening, I left a note for the kids that I'd be out, though neither Carol nor Jared was home at the time. The sports bar was a short drive away. I arrived, found Kyle at a corner table and clasped hands in a half-hug. He looked the same as always. Broad grin, slightly unruly hair, the confident posture of someone who breezes through life with minimal worry. "Man, it's been too long," Kyle said, tipping his beer. "How's Karen? Kids?" I sank into the seat opposite him. "Kids are okay," I began slowly. "Karen, not so much. We're in a rough patch." Kyle raised an eyebrow. "I'm sorry to hear that, buddy. What's going on?" I hesitated, glancing around the dim bar. The hum of chatter, Clinking glasses and faint smell of fried food surrounded us like a protective bubble. It felt safer here than in my own kitchen. "I'm not even sure how to explain it," I said. "She's secretive, always out, and I've noticed weird stuff like random ATM withdrawals, phone calls she ends when I walk in, flowers from an unnamed sender." Kyle took a thoughtful sip, then leaned forward. "Ethan, you think she's—" "I don't know," I interrupted before he finished. "But I can't shake the feeling that she's seeing someone else, or at least thinking about it. We hardly talk anymore." He let out a sympathetic sigh. "That sucks. Have you confronted her?" "In bits and pieces. She gets angry. Says I'm controlling." I shook my head. I never used to be paranoid like this, but I can't ignore how she's acting. We ordered another round. Kyle asked me questions, trying to piece it all together. I told him about the nights she came home late with flimsy excuses, the phone calls labeled as work friends, the outbursts in front of the kids. By the time I finished venting, the bartender had brought over a basket of fries, and the overhead TV was playing a baseball game neither of us paid attention to. Kyle whistled. "You sure you want to stick around if she's messing around? That's serious betrayal, man." My chest tightened. "I've been with her half my life. We have 2 kids. You don't just walk away without knowing the full story, right?" He nodded slowly. "True. But don't let her walk all over you either. You deserve better than being kept in the dark." Eventually, we switched topics, talked about Kyle's new job, old college memories. Yet Karen's potential betrayal loomed in the back of my mind like a shadow. Around 9, I decided to head home, not wanting to be out too late. In the car, I stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror under the neon glow of the bar's sign. My face looked drawn, tension set around my eyes. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Karen's car was still gone. The lights inside the house were mostly off, except for a small lamp in the living room. I found Carol sprawled on the couch, headphones on, flipping through something on her phone. She looked up, gave me a half smile, and took the headphones off. "Hey, Dad, you meet a friend?" she asked. "Yeah, Kyle from college. Thought it'd be nice to catch up." She nodded, glancing towards the window. "Mom's not home yet." I swallowed hard. "I see that. Did she say where she was going after the coffee meet?" Carol shrugged. "She said she might do some shopping. That was hours ago, though. I guess I'm used to her being out." A pang hit my chest. My daughter shouldn't be used to her mother being out late, unaccounted for. This wasn't normal. Carol must have read my expression because she gave me a reassuring pat on the arm. "I'm gonna head to bed, Dad. Try not to worry too much, okay?" I forced a smile. "Thanks, sweetie. Good night." Alone again, I paced the living room. The vase of pale roses looked eerie in the dim light. I couldn't get them out of my head. Who sends flowers with no name? Why would Karen keep them if she truly believed they were a mistake? Minutes ticked by. I ended up flicking on the TV for background noise, but I barely processed the talk show playing. My phone lay silent on the coffee table, no texts, no calls from Karen. Around 10:30 p.m. headlights swept across the front window, and I heard Karen's car pull in. I muted the TV and braced myself. She opened the door and stepped in, flipping on the entryway light. She carried a single shopping bag from a department store. "Hey," she said casually, as if returning from a mundane chore. I stood up. "You okay?" "Yeah, just needed some new shoes," she replied, waving the bag. "I ended up browsing for a while." I glanced at the clock. "It's pretty late." She stiffened, her posture defensive. "Are you going to lecture me about going out? I told you I needed space." I let out a tense breath. "Karen, it's not about lecturing. I'm worried about you. About us." Her eyes flicked to the roses on the counter. For a second, I thought she might offer an explanation. Instead, she changed the subject. "Where's Carol?" "Went to bed. She was waiting for you to come home." My voice came out sharper than I intended. Karen's jaw tightened. "Well, she didn't have to. She's old enough to know I can take care of myself." I opened my mouth to speak, but she brushed past me, heading upstairs. The tension was thick, suffocating, yet I couldn't find the right words to break through. Instead, I heard her footsteps on the second-floor landing, then a door closing. I stood in the living room, staring at the unspoken questions swirling in my head like a vortex. The day had begun with flowers that had no sender, and it ended with my wife shutting me out yet again. A hollow sense of dread sat in my stomach. Every sign was pointing toward something bigger, something that would shatter the comfortable life we'd built. I glanced out the window at the quiet street. The darkness beyond felt oddly comforting compared to the darkness creeping into my marriage. Upstairs, I heard the faint sound of running water. Karen taking a late shower. My thoughts flickered to how she smelled of unfamiliar cologne once or twice before. I'd brushed it off, telling myself I was imagining it. Now, I wasn't so sure. As the water shut off, I felt a prickle of fear. Whatever was coming next would change everything. In that moment, with the living room lamp casting harsh shadows, I could almost see the future unravel. The small cracks I'd noticed were spiderwebbing across the foundation of our marriage. I didn't know how or when they'd split wide open, but I sensed it was closer than ever. Something told me that night was just the calm before the storm, the final lull before my wife tore down the walls of trust we'd painstakingly built over 15 years. And all I could do was wait to see how far she would go. Friday evenings used to be my favorite time of the week. I'd drive home in lighter traffic, feeling relief that the weekend was near, imagining a quiet dinner or a movie night with Karen and the kids. This Friday felt different from the start. I parked in the driveway and noticed that Karen's car was already there, a bit unusual, since she often worked until 6. My nerves were frayed after weeks of tension, so I walked in slowly, almost bracing for bad news. The house seemed quiet. No chatter, no usual calls of Dad, "You're home," from Jared or Carol. I set my keys on the foyer table and headed upstairs to change out of my work clothes. As soon as I stepped into the bedroom, my heart lurched. Laid out on the bed in plain view was an outfit I'd seen Karen wear only a handful of times over our entire marriage, a form-fitting black dress paired with sheer stockings and high heels. Alongside it, I spotted lingerie, the kind she bought but rarely used unless she wanted to do something special for an anniversary or birthday. But this time, the vibe felt all wrong. I heard the bathroom door creak. Karen emerged, hair wrapped in a towel. She caught my wide-eyed stare and didn't flinch. If anything, she looked almost steeled for a confrontation. "Hi," she said curtly. I glanced from the outfit to her face. "What's all this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. My pulse hammered in my ears. She shrugged, loosening the towel around her hair. "I have plans tonight." "Plans with who?" I demanded, though I already sensed I wouldn't like the answer. Karen walked over to the bed, picked up the black dress, and shook out the wrinkles. "Devin," she said, as if the name alone should explain everything. My stomach twisted. "And Devin is?" "A friend," she replied, her tone eerily calm. "Someone I met through a colleague." My heart sank, and I recalled the hushed phone calls, the unexplained absences, the wrong address flowers. "So you're going out? On a date?" The last word tasted bitter as I spoke it. Karen didn't hesitate. "Yes, one night with him," she said. "Just once. I need this, Ethan." I stared at her, trying to make sense of the words. "What do you mean you need this? Are you telling me you're going to cheat on me tonight? And you're just telling me up front?" She let out a slow breath. "I'm not calling it cheating. I'm not sneaking around behind your back. I told you exactly what I'm doing." The sheer audacity left me speechless for a moment. My mind replayed the early days of our relationship, our wedding vows, the times we swore we'd never lie to each other. Now she was casually telling me she planned to share herself with another man. "Karen, this is insane." Her eyes flashed with a mix of guilt and determination. "Maybe it is," she admitted. "But I feel old, Ethan. I feel invisible, like I'm losing my looks and my spark. Devin's interested in me. He's 10 years younger. I just want to feel wanted." A lump built in my throat. "Why didn't you tell me you felt this way? Couldn't we talk or see a counselor or anything else?" She shook her head. "I'm tired of talking. This is my decision. Just one night. Then I'll come home and we'll move on." A wave of anger cut through my shock. Move on? Like nothing happened? That's not how marriage works. You vowed to forsake all others, remember? Karen's voice tightened. Stop the lecture. You want me to be honest, right? Well, I'm being honest. I need something that only Devin can give me tonight. My jaw clenched. Karen, if you walk out that door to meet him, you can't expect to come back like it's business as usual. She carefully laid the dress on the bed. I can and I will. If you really love me, you'll let me have this. A white-hot fury bloomed in my chest. You're giving me an ultimatum? You're the one doing this and I'm the one who's supposed to let it slide? She met my glare. I'm not giving you an ultimatum. I'm just telling you how it is. I refuse to keep living in a rut worrying about wrinkles, dealing with the same tired routine and not feeling desired. This one night changes nothing about how I feel about you or about the kids. It's purely physical. An ugly laugh tore from my throat. That's the biggest load of crap I've ever heard, I spat. You're about to destroy our marriage for a cheap thrill. Karen's expression darkened. Don't make it worse by being dramatic. If you get in my way, I'll make sure you regret it. My stomach twisted with dread. What is that supposed to mean? She raised her chin. You know exactly what it means. If you try to divorce me over this, I'll fight you with everything I've got. I'll get custody of Carol and Jared, I'll take the house, and I'll milk you for child support until you're living in a cardboard box. Don't forget, the courts don't care about who cheated. They usually favor the mother. So if you want to push me, go ahead, but you'll lose everything. It felt like a punch to the gut hearing my own wife threaten me with legal ruin. Karen, I whispered, feeling a sick hollowness in my chest. You can't be serious. She shrugged one shoulder. I'm dead serious, but I'm hoping it won't come to that, because I do still love you, Ethan. I just need tonight. The conflicting emotions in her eyes, love, desperation, defiance, sent me reeling. How could someone claim to love me while planning to sleep with another man in a few hours? I stepped back, hands trembling. If you go, you leave me no choice, I whispered. I can't stay married to someone who'd do this. She glanced at the clock. I'm sorry you feel that way, but I have to leave soon. Then, in a twisted show of normalcy, she said, Don't worry about the kids. Carol is at a friend's tonight, and Jared's staying over at a classmate's place. This won't affect them. I was too stunned to respond. My mouth felt dry, and my heart pounded like a drum in my ears. Karen breezed into the bathroom to fix her hair and do her makeup, leaving me staring at that black dress and lingerie on the bed, an outfit meant for Devin, not for me. Minutes later, she emerged, fully dressed in that sleek black ensemble, hair styled in soft waves. I realized I'd never seen her this dressed up in months, maybe years. My chest tightened. This is your final decision? I asked, voice raw. She nodded, picking up a small clutch purse. Yes, I'll see you tomorrow. Then she paused by the doorway and added in a hushed tone, Don't do anything stupid. Without another word, she swept out of the bedroom. I heard the front door open and close. From the window, I saw a car pull up, probably Devin waiting at the curb. Karen got in. The car drove away, tail lights gleaming in the dusk. I stood there for a long time, trying to steady my breathing, grappling with the reality that my wife had just left to be with another man, fully expecting me to sit at home like a chump. My entire world seemed to tilt on its axis. Anger, betrayal, heartbreak, and a cold sense of determination churned together in my mind. Finally, I sank onto the bed, eyes on that empty closet space where her coat should have been. A searing pain clenched my chest, but beneath it, something else stirred, a quiet but resolute voice that said, I won't just roll over. If she really does this, I'll make sure she faces the consequences. For the moment, though, all I could do was wait in the suffocating silence, the echo of that slamming door replaying in my thoughts. The wife I once knew had just crossed a line I never imagined was even an option. The emptiness of the house pressed in on me after Karen left. It was only 7 in the evening, yet the shadows outside felt like midnight. My thoughts whirled with an intensity that made me nauseous. I slumped on the living room couch, staring at the blank TV screen, unsure of what to do next. For the first time in years, I wished the kids were home, if only to fill the deafening quiet. but it was almost a twisted mercy that Carol and Jared were elsewhere tonight. They didn't need to witness their mother walking out in high heels to meet another man. At some point, I couldn't sit still any longer. I paced through every room, flicking lights on and off, searching for a distraction. The anger kept ratcheting up inside me. I found myself walking into the office, flipping open my laptop, and logging into the bank account Karen and I had shared for over a decade. The screen loaded, and I saw our checking and savings balances. I remembered Karen's threat all too clearly. "I'll take the house, the kids, every penny you have." Maybe she was bluffing, but something in me snapped. If she's going to use the system against me, I'm not going to sit here helpless. Without fully planning it, I transferred half of each account into a private account in my own name. My chest pounded with adrenaline as I watched the digital numbers shift. I knew it was bold, but this wasn't some random impulse. My marriage might be over after tonight, and if Karen's words held true, she'd do whatever it took to leave me financially ruined. After I secured those funds, I went further canceling our joint credit cards. We had enough credit to revolve around monthly expenses, but I didn't want her running up bills while I still remained legally attached. I called each provider, hearing the slight tremor in my voice as I explained I was canceling for personal reasons. By the end of the calls, the accounts were deactivated. When the last cancellation was done, I set the phone down, my hands shaking. A wave of emotion crashed over me, part rage, part heartbreak. I realized tears were stinging my eyes. This wasn't just about money. This was me acknowledging that the woman I loved was gone in every sense that mattered. I let myself cry for a minute, pressing my palms against my face. Over a decade of marriage, undone by a single night she claimed would fix her self-esteem. The sheer betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. It was an ugly, heaving sob that tore out of my throat something I'd never let myself feel before. And as quickly as the tears came, a steely resolve followed. I dried my face and walked upstairs, refusing to sleep in the same bed that Karen and I once shared so intimately. My mind drifted back to the days of sipping coffee together in bed on a lazy Sunday morning. That was now a cruel memory. I gathered my clothes, personal items, anything I deemed essential, and moved them into the spare bedroom down the hall. The spare had a twin bed and a small dresser, rarely used except when we had overnight guests. It felt cramped, almost claustrophobic, but I forced myself to see it as a temporary fortress somewhere to keep myself locked away from the toxicity of what Karen might bring home tomorrow. I locked the bedroom door from the inside, pressing my back against it. The silence in the hallway was heavy. I pictured Karen stepping into some upscale hotel room or maybe Devin's fancy condo, letting him run his hands over her in the way that used to be reserved for me. The thought made me physically ill. Out of pure exhaustion, I flopped onto the twin bed. For a while, I scrolled through my phone aimlessly, resisting the urge to text Karen. There was no point in begging or raging at her. She made her choice. Eventually, I forced myself to put the phone aside. Sleep didn't come easily, but at some point, my body shut down from the emotional toll. I woke before dawn to the faint glow of morning light peeking through the blinds. My mouth felt dry, my eyes gritty. For a brief second, I forgot what had happened. Then it all crashed back down, making my stomach twist. Part of me hoped to find that last night was just a nightmare, that I'd walk into the living room and see Karen sipping coffee as usual. But I knew the truth. When I headed downstairs, I was met by an eerie emptiness. The house smelled vaguely like stale air and leftover tension. My first stop was the kitchen, where I made coffee strong enough to jolt me into reality. As I sipped in silence, I couldn't help noticing Karen's mug still sitting on the drying rack. A memory of the times we used to share these mornings came unbidden. I shoved it away. I spent the early hours on the phone, opening a new credit card solely in my name. The conversation with the bank rep felt surreal, like an ordinary chore overshadowed by the knowledge that my wife was out fulfilling her one-night fling. They approved my application quickly, and the card would arrive in a few days. It was a small triumph, at least one measure of financial independence. Around 9, I drifted into the living room and sank onto the couch, coffee in hand, mind spinning. Where were the kids right now? Carol was likely at her friend Sarah's house. Jared maybe at Peter's. I hated that their mother's betrayal could knock the wind out of them if they found out. but I couldn't protect them from it forever. It was nearing 10 when I heard the front door open. My muscles tensed involuntarily. The sound of heels clacking on the hardwood told me Karen had come back. I steeled myself, focusing on the swirl of coffee in my cup. She walked in like nothing happened, like she'd just been out to pick up groceries. Her hair was styled, makeup still mostly intact. She wore a faint, chilly smile as she dropped her small clutch on the counter. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed she'd just gone for an early morning jog or something equally innocent. "Morning," she said, tone unsettlingly calm. I stared at her. "Morning," I echoed, forcing the word out. She set a grocery bag on the counter, some bread, a carton of eggs. "Pick these up for breakfast," she said, as though we were a normal couple. Then, noticing the way I clutched my mug, she added, "Are you okay?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Seriously? You vanish all night to sleep with another man, and the first thing you ask me is if I'm okay?" Karen shrugged, half turning away. "I told you what I was doing. I was honest. You could have stopped me if you really wanted to." My jaw tightened. "I did try to stop you, Karen. I told you if you walked out that door, we were done. You made it very clear you didn't care." She glanced around, noticing for the first time that my shoes and jacket were gone from their usual spot. Then she must have realized the atmosphere felt different because her brow creased. "Where's all your stuff?" "In the spare bedroom," I replied flatly. "I'm not sharing a room with someone who just broke every vow we ever made." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't be so dramatic. It was one night." She placed the groceries in the fridge. "Let's not make a big thing of this." A sharp anger flared again. "Not make a big thing? You threatened to take the kids, the house, everything if I didn't just let you do what you wanted." Karen exhaled, rubbing her temple. "I said that because I was upset. Let's just move forward, okay? I can promise you last night was the only time. I feel better about myself now. We can go back to normal." My hand shook around the mug. "There's no normal after this." She finally noticed the stack of canceled credit cards on the side table, the bank statements I'd printed out. Her expression soured. "What did you do?" "What I had to." I stood up. "I secured my share. You don't get to threaten me and expect me to lie down." A deep frown settled over her features. "You're an idiot," she hissed. "The kids will never forgive you if you tear this family apart." I bristled at that. "I'm tearing the family apart? You're the one who cheated. Stop twisting this to blame me." She glared, crossing her arms. "I told you I'd come back to you. You refused to understand. That's on you." My stomach churned, and my mind spun with confusion and resentment. For an instant, I imagined smashing the coffee mug against the wall, anything to express the turmoil inside. But I swallowed that urge, grabbed my phone instead, and stalked upstairs to the spare bedroom, leaving Karen alone in the kitchen. Before I shut the door behind me, I heard her mutter something under her breath, probably another complaint about me. My vision blurred with tears of rage and betrayal. My marriage to Karen was splintering irreparably, and she had the audacity to act like I was causing the problem by reacting. I locked myself in the spare bedroom, sinking onto the bed. Despite my anger, sadness crept in, mingling with a sick sense of finality. What used to be love was now a chasm of hostility, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it was only going to get worse from here. Not long after our confrontation, I heard a key turn in the front door downstairs. My pulse jumped, thinking maybe Carol or Jared had decided to come home early. I listened, hearing muffled voices. Sure enough, 2 sets of footsteps soon padded through the hallway. Cautiously, I emerged from the spare bedroom in time to see Carol dropping her backpack by the couch. Jared was close behind, shoulders slumped from carrying an overnight bag. They both looked surprised to see me standing at the top of the stairs. "Dad?" Carol said. "You're here?" I forced a smile. "Of course I'm here. Where else would I be?" She glanced at the spare bedroom behind me. "Mom said you might be out of town or something." Her words stung. Karen had started planting seeds of deception already, it seemed. I swallowed hard. "No, I'm here. Just had some work stuff to do this morning." Behind Carol, Jared peered at me with narrowed eyes. He looked anxious, like he could feel the tension in the air. "Where's Mom?" he asked. "Kitchen, I think," I replied, stepping aside so they could pass. Carol nodded, heading for the kitchen. I followed a few steps behind, feeling dread coil in my gut. Karen stood by the sink, stirring a glass of water, as if everything were normal. "Hey, kids," she said with a sweet smile that set my teeth on edge. "How was your night?" Carol frowned at her. "It was fine. Is everything okay here? It feels weird." Karen shot me a warning look before turning to Carol. "Just some grown-up disagreements. Nothing for you to worry about." Jared shifted uncomfortably. "We're not little kids, Mom. We can tell something's going on." There was a tense beat of silence. Karen exhaled, then put on her best calm tone. "Your father and I had a little argument. He's overreacting to something. Right, Ethan?" My jaw tightened. "Overreacting, huh?" She gave me a look that practically screamed, "Don't you dare say more." But I couldn't just stand there. My heart ached seeing Carol and Jared's confusion. Before I could speak, Karen stepped in, addressing them directly. "It's nothing serious," she repeated. "Dad's just upset that I went out last night. He thinks I should have stayed home, but I needed some time for myself." Carol glanced at me, uncertain. "Is that true, Dad?" I tried to catch Carol's gaze, but it was Karen's eyes I felt burning into me. "That's not the whole truth," I managed, struggling to keep my voice even. Karen let out a sharp sigh. "Kids, do me a favor and go unpack your bags. We'll talk about this later." But Carol shook her head. "No, Mom. If something's wrong, we want to know." A flicker of panic crossed Karen's face. She turned to me again, and I realized she fully expected me to keep quiet about her affair. Maybe she was banking on my reluctance to hurt the kids or tarnish their image of her. I swallowed a bitter taste, feeling torn. Did I want to be the one to destroy their trust in their mother? Karen jumped in before I could formulate a response. "Look, your dad can't accept that I have a life outside this house. He's overbearing sometimes. And when I told him I wanted to go out for the evening, he got furious." Furious didn't even begin to describe what I felt, but I refused to let her paint me as the controlling husband. "I told you that if you walked out, there would be consequences," I said quietly, aware of Carol and Jared listening intently. "You threatened me in return." Carol's eyes darted back and forth between us, confusion and fear in them. Threatened? Karen's composure cracked for a moment. "I just said what would happen if he tried to divorce me. That's not a threat, it's the reality of how custody works." Jared tensed at the word divorce. He looked at me, wide-eyed. "Dad, you wouldn't leave us, would you?" A pang of guilt ripped through me. "I'm not leaving you, son. This is between your mom and me." Karen lifted her chin. "It doesn't have to affect you two at all. It was just one night. But your dad decided to throw a tantrum and move into the spare bedroom, cancel credit cards, and do all sorts of drama." I felt my cheeks burn as both Carol and Jared stared at me. "Wait, Dad," Carol asked softly. "Why would you do that?" My mind scrambled for a rational explanation that wouldn't drag them into adult darkness. I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. "I had reasons," I said. "But it's complicated." Karen pounced on that. "See? He won't even tell you the truth because he knows how ridiculous it sounds. It was just one night out, Carol. I'm still your mother." A simmering anger flared inside me at her manipulative tone. She was spinning half-truths with surgical precision, making me the bad guy for reacting to her blatant betrayal. I forced myself to stay composed for the kids' sake. Jared let out a shaky breath. "I don't get it. Mom, if it was just a night out, why is Dad this mad? There has to be more." Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. She shot me a glare that threatened me not to speak. Then, with an almost gentle voice, she said, "Your dad can't handle the idea that I wanted to do something on my own. He's always been a bit controlling. You've seen how he double-checks bank statements, how he questions me if I'm even a little late." The twist of her words stung like a slap. She was using my legitimate concerns about those suspicious withdrawals as evidence of me being controlling. Carol bit her lip. "Dad's not usually controlling," she ventured, uncertain. Jared looked at me, then at Karen, then back to me. "So is that why you canceled the cards, Dad? Because you wanted to punish Mom for going out?" There it was, punish Mom, The phrase made me feel sick. They were too young to understand the gravity of an affair. If I told them the raw truth that their mother had gone to spend the night with another man, how would that scar them? Yet letting Karen spin this story uncontested hurt just as badly. I cleared my throat, staring at the floor. I did it to protect myself, I said slowly. Not to punish your mom. I paused, fighting a wave of despair. I can't explain everything right now. You're just going to have to trust that I have good reasons. Karen capitalized on the moment. She turned her head to the kids, expression solemn. See how he won't tell you the real story? He's being unreasonable, Carol, Jared. Please don't blame me for wanting one night of freedom. I couldn't stand another minute of her manipulative charade. That's enough, I said, voice trembling. I'm not discussing this any further with the kids in the middle. Carol's eyes welled with tears. Dad, Mom, can we not fight? I hate this. Jared's face hardened and he turned to Karen. Why does it feel like you're not telling the whole truth, Mom? She let out a frustrated sigh. I'm telling you what I can without dragging you into ugly details. Don't you trust me? But Jared didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed his bag and mumbled, I'm going to my room. Carol followed him, a stricken look on her face. The moment they were out of earshot, Karen shot me a furious glare. You're turning them against me. My laugh was hollow. You're doing that on your own. You might have convinced them I'm overbearing, but trust me, the truth always comes out eventually. She stepped closer, lowering her voice to a venomous whisper. We'll see. If you keep pushing for some moral high ground, you'll end up losing everything. I gritted my teeth. I have nothing more to say to you. Keep lying to them if that's what you want. But don't pretend you're protecting them. You're just protecting yourself. Her cheeks flushed, and for a moment she looked ready to lash out physically. Instead, she turned on her heel and stormed off toward the bedroom, leaving me alone in the kitchen with the dull hum of the refrigerator and my own pulsing anger. Hearing Carol's muffled sobs behind her closed door tore at me. Jared was probably trying to comfort his sister in his stoic way. My heart ached that they had to watch us tear each other apart without understanding the real cause. But what else could I do? If I told them the truth, they'd never look at their mother the same way again. Maybe that was inevitable, but I couldn't bring myself to shatter their world, at least not yet. The weekend that followed was tense beyond words. Karen and I existed under the same roof, barely speaking. When we did, it was either in whispers or bitter barbs behind closed doors. Carol and Jared kept to their rooms, occasionally venturing out to grab a snack or watch TV, but retreating whenever the tension flared. By Sunday night, the atmosphere was suffocating. I slept, if you could call it, sleep in the spare bedroom, restless and haunted by the knowledge that Karen had actually gone through with her one-time fling. My mind churned with regrets, anger, and a grim realization that nothing would ever be the same. Monday morning arrived with a gray sky and a cold drizzle. I got up early, hoping to avoid any confrontation in the house. Quickly, I dressed in the spare bedroom, grabbed my laptop, and slid out the front door before Karen or the kids were up. I texted Carol and Jared a quick, "I'll be home tonight, have a good day at school," just so they wouldn't think I'd vanished. At the office, I found it impossible to concentrate. My coworker Jackson noticed immediately that I was off, but I didn't have the energy to share the latest developments with him. By lunchtime, I was pacing near my desk, the phone in my hand, wrestling with a decision that had weighed on me since Karen threatened me with legal ruin. If you leave me, I'll take the kids, the house, everything. Her words played on a loop in my head, but I also remembered the vow I made to myself that night. I wouldn't just roll over and let her destroy me. When the clock struck noon, I took a shaky breath, stepped outside to the parking lot, and tapped a number I'd found online. A local family law attorney named Rebecca Mills. My heart hammered as it rang. An assistant answered, sounding cheerful and efficient. She asked a few questions, then scheduled me for a same-day consultation at 4 p.m. I ended the call, feeling a mix of dread and relief. Walking out of my marriage felt monumental, like stepping off a cliff. But every instinct told me there was no saving it after Karen's betrayal. The question was, could I navigate the legal system without losing my children or my sanity? By 3:30, I'd left work early, weaving through traffic under the steady rain to a modest brick office building on the east side of town. The sign outside read, Mills and Branson, family law. My nerves felt shot as I pushed through the glass doors into a small reception area with potted plants and neutral-toned walls. A young receptionist smiled politely and had me fill out some initial paperwork. I slumped into a waiting room chair, pen shaking slightly as I scrawled my personal details. The pit in my stomach reminded me of how final this step was. Yet I couldn't ignore the sense of necessity driving me here. After a few minutes, the receptionist showed me into a private office. Rebecca Mills stood to greet me. She was in her early 40s with a sharp gaze and a firm handshake. "Ethan, nice to meet you," she said. "Have a seat." I sank into the chair across from her desk. Diplomas from a top law school hung on the wall, along with a few framed photos of her family. I felt a twinge of envy for anyone who still had a stable family life. "So," Rebecca began, folding her hands on the desk, "tell me what brings you in today." I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. "I'm considering divorce," I finally managed. "My wife cheated on me." Rebecca nodded, expression empathetic but businesslike. "I'm sorry to hear that. Do you have children together?" "Two," I said. "Carol is 16, Jared is 14. "Any shared assets, a home, joint finances?" she asked, pulling out a notepad. I explained the basics. We owned a house together, had joint accounts I'd recently divided, and I was the primary earner while Karen worked part-time. Rebecca listened intently, taking careful notes. She then began outlining how the law tended to handle these issues. In our state, fault didn't usually affect property division or child custody. I felt a surge of anger that Karen's betrayal didn't legally matter. "But she threatened to take everything," I said, voice cracking with frustration. "She said she'd ruin me." Rebecca gave me a knowing smile. People say a lot of things in the heat of a marital breakdown. Courts focus on the best interests of the children, equitable distribution of property, and so forth. It doesn't mean it'll go her way automatically. She explained that custody for teenagers often factored in their own preferences. If Carol and Jared wanted to live with their mother, the court would weigh that. The idea that Karen might twist them against me was terrifying. Rebecca seemed to sense my concern. "Look, if you're worried about parental alienation, keep track of everything. Communication, attempts to see the kids, any hostile interactions. A consistent paper trail helps." The conversation shifted to finances. I confessed I'd already moved half our savings and canceled credit cards. Rebecca's eyebrows rose, but she didn't scold me. "It's not uncommon to secure your portion of marital funds when you sense hostility," she said. "Just make sure you're not leaving her without any means to pay living expenses until we sort this out." I nodded, feeling a bit of relief that I hadn't broken any laws by protecting myself. "I just don't want to be blindsided if she tries to max out everything or freeze me out." Rebecca tapped her notepad. "Wise move. The best approach is to remain calm, organized, and cautious. Document everything." I swallowed, the question of the kids looming largest in my mind. "So what about Carol and Jared?" Rebecca's expression softened. "Divorce is hard on teenagers, but their opinions do matter. That said, your wife could influence them. You have to stay consistent, be the steady parent. Keep a record of the times you attempt to see or support them. Judges pick up on who's being reasonable. My head spun with legal jargon and worst-case scenarios, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of control returning. I wasn't powerless if Karen wanted a legal war. I could fight back, or at least defend myself effectively. Rebecca concluded by suggesting next steps: file for a petition of divorce, request a temporary custody arrangement, gather financial documents, and come back with more details. I agreed, setting an appointment for the following week to finalize paperwork. By the time I left her office, the rain had let up. The sky was still a dull gray, matching my mood, but I felt a weight shift inside me like a door had opened to a path I never expected to walk, yet I was stepping onto it anyway. I drove home slowly, replaying the meeting in my mind. Every so often, my hands trembled on the steering wheel, imagining the fallout. Karen's wrath, the kids' heartbreak, the sense of failure that I couldn't keep our family intact. But I reminded myself what Karen had done, threatened me, betrayed me, and then pretended it was no big deal. Pulling into the driveway, I noticed the lights on in the living room. Through the curtains, I could see Jared's silhouette, probably watching TV. My heart thudded as I walked up to the door, bracing for whatever new tension might greet me. Inside, the first thing I saw was Carol's face re-dyed, clutching her phone. Jared sat beside her, arms folded. Karen stood at the far end of the couch, arms crossed, glaring at me. The atmosphere was pure hostility. "Where were you?" Karen demanded. "I've been telling the kids you ran off to who knows where." I took a breath. "I had an appointment." "An appointment?" she echoed, eyebrows shooting up. "For what?" My gaze flicked to Carol and Jared, who looked both worried and frustrated. I couldn't say divorce lawyer in front of them, not like this. "Nothing that concerns you," I said quietly. "Let's talk in private." Karen threw up her hands. "Oh, right. Keep secrets from the kids. That's fine. But if I go out one night, you treat me like the devil." Her voice dripped with sarcasm. I clenched my teeth, forcibly staying calm. "Carol, Jared, I'm sorry for all this. I promise we'll talk soon, but right now I need to speak to your mother alone." They nodded numbly and left the room, the tension pressing down like a lead blanket. Once they were out of earshot, Karen turned on me, her voice a harsh whisper. "You went to a lawyer, didn't you?" I said nothing, but my silence was answer enough. Her face twisted with a mixture of fear and anger. "You're really doing this?" My throat felt tight. "You left me no choice." She clenched her fists. "Fine. If it's war you want, you'll get it." Her voice shook slightly, betraying a flicker of uncertainty, but the fury in her eyes was undeniable. I took a step back, heart hammering. This was the final blow. "Then so be it," I said, voice barely above a murmur. The weight of those words settled between us like a physical barrier. This was no longer a threatened possibility, it was the inevitable reality. We were at the point of no return. I turned away, heading upstairs to the spare bedroom that had become my refuge. Behind me, I heard Karen let out a bitter laugh, an ugly, pained sound that echoed in the hallway. Neither of us had truly won anything. We'd both lost the marriage we once built, but I'd rather face the legal storm than endure the lie Karen wanted us to live. In the hallway, I paused at Carol's closed door, hearing muffled sniffles. Part of me wanted to step in, reassure her, but I knew we were at a stage where the mere sight of me might cause more confusion. So I moved on, into my room, shutting the door gently behind me. Throwing my briefcase on the twin bed, I sank onto the mattress, suddenly exhausted. Images of the kids' faces swam in my mind. I pictured Jared's guarded anger and Carol's heartbreak. My chest constricted. "I'm not leaving them," I thought fiercely. "No matter what Karen says, I won't abandon my children." The day's events weighed on me. The attorney's advice, the tension in the living room, Karen's furious accusation. But I also felt a flicker of resolve. This was the only path forward now. She could threaten, twist truths, even weaponize the kids against me, but I wouldn't be the helpless victim in her game. As the night wore on, I began packing. I couldn't stand being under the same roof any longer. My clothes, personal files, and a few treasured items went into 2 suitcases. While I wasn't planning to vanish from my kids' lives, I realized living here was impossible, especially as Karen escalated her attacks. Before midnight, I quietly slipped out of the house, loaded my suitcases into my car, and took one last look at the dark windows. My eyes burned with tears again, memories of happier times swirling in my head. But I couldn't stay. Not now. Not after everything. I started the engine, the headlights casting a glow on the familiar front porch. For a moment, I almost turned the car off, feeling a pang of guilt at leaving Carol and Jared. But the thought of Karen's smug face and her unwavering claim that she could do whatever she wanted pushed me onward. As I drove away, the rain started again, droplets clinging to the windshield. I felt like I was stepping into a new world, one where I'd have to fight for my children and my future. It was terrifying, but it was also strangely liberating. The house behind me grew smaller in the rearview mirror, and with it, the remnants of a life I once cherished. I never saw myself as a man who'd be walking into court to fight for my livelihood and possibly my kids. Yet here I am, pushing open the glass door of Mills and Branson family law for the second time this month. Rain patters against the sidewalk outside, a steady autumn drizzle that seems to match my mood. Ever since I left our family home 2 weeks ago, I've been crashing at a modest apartment off Oak Street. It's a short-term lease with basic furniture. The walls almost bare, but it's enough for now. My routine: go to work, drive to this dreary apartment, stare at the phone hoping Carol or Jared might text me. So far, nothing. Karen, however, has bombarded me with emails that ping between threats and demands for money. I set my umbrella by the reception desk and greet Tasha, the bright-eyed assistant I'm starting to know too well. "Morning, Ethan," she says sympathetically. "Miss Mills is ready for you." My stomach twists. "Thanks," I manage. I step into Rebecca Mills's office. She's wearing a tailored navy blazer today, hair pinned back neatly. Behind her desk, there's a half-empty coffee cup and a stack of manila folders. She gestures for me to sit. I sink into the chair, exhaling. "Morning, Rebecca." She offers a brisk nod. "Morning. Have you gotten any new information since our last meeting?" I clench my jaw. Karen's demanded child support unofficially, threw about a dozen nasty emails, and threatened to deny me any access to our kids unless I move back home and drop the divorce. She's also making me out to be the bad guy for abandoning them. Rebecca scribbles notes. "That aligns with what we discussed. She'll try to control the narrative. But legally, you have the right to see your children. Right now, there's no formal custody order in place." The mention of custody stings. Carol and Jared haven't spoken to me. It's like Karen flipped a switch and suddenly I'm the enemy. I text them, I call them, I get no response. Rebecca leans forward, lowering her voice. "Document every attempt. Keep a log date, time, method. If Karen is interfering with communication, it could be considered parental alienation. Judges frown on that." My head throbs. I just want them to know I love them. Even as the words come out, I feel pathetic. My kids should know that. But Karen's probably in their ears night and day, painting me as a monster. Rebecca's expression softens. "I know, Ethan. Let's talk about next steps. We'll need to file a formal petition for divorce. I'll draft a motion for temporary orders, child support, visitation schedules, spousal support. The judge can set a temporary arrangement until the final divorce decree." I nod stiffly. "What about the house? Karen still lives there. I'm paying half the mortgage. She's threatened to change the locks." "She can't legally lock you out unless there's a protective order," Rebecca says calmly. "But we'll address property distribution as well. It might take months, even a year, for the final decision." She flips through a file. "Unfortunately, our state's laws often favor mothers in custody battles, especially for older kids who can express a preference." I feel a pang in my gut. Carol is 16, Jared is 14, both old enough to have their preferences weigh heavily. If they've been convinced I'm the villain, they might choose Karen. The thought is like swallowing shards of glass. "Worst case scenario?" I ask quietly. Rebecca sighs. "Worst case? Karen gets primary physical custody. You pay a significant amount of child support, plus spousal maintenance. You get visitation, but if the kids refuse to see you, it's complicated to enforce. The property might be divided so that Karen keeps the house for their stability, and you get a portion of equity. But that's not set in stone." My mind swirls. And best case scenario? You get shared or joint custody, or at least meaningful parenting time. Financial arrangements might favor a roughly equal division of assets, but a lot depends on how the kids weigh in and how cooperative Karen is. If she's vindictive, this could be a long fight. I swallow. I don't want it to be ugly, but she's already threatened me. She had an affair, yet I'm the one who had to leave. It's not fair. Rebecca's voice softens. I hear this from many clients. The law rarely punishes infidelity in a no-fault divorce system. We'll emphasize that her actions harmed the marriage, but realistically, judges focus on the kids, not who cheated. I'm sorry. My anger spikes, but I keep it in check. So what do I do now? She hands me a folder. I've drafted the initial petition. Review it, sign where indicated. We'll file it this week. Then Karen will be served. After that, we'll request a hearing for temporary orders. Keep documenting everything. Also, gather any financial records, bank statements, credit card bills, pay stubs, tax returns. The more organized we are, the smoother our case. I nod, flipping through the paperwork. My eyes land on the word petitioner Ethan Maxwell and respondent Karen Maxwell. The stark reality hits. I'm petitioning to end my marriage, to fight a legal war against the mother of my children. Rebecca must see my hesitation. Take your time, read carefully. If you want to keep it amicable, we can try mediation first, but from what you've said, Karen doesn't seem open to that. An ironic laugh escapes me. She threatened to destroy me if I tried to divorce her. I doubt she'll sit down with a mediator. We finalize a few details. After half an hour, I step out into the corridor, documents in hand. Tasha smiles kindly at me. Have a good day, Mr. Maxwell. I force a return smile. Thanks, I say, though good day is the last phrase I'd use for the storm that's forming around me. Outside, the rain has slowed to a drizzle. My phone buzzes. A quick glance shows an email from Karen. If you keep ignoring my calls, I'll assume you've cut us off financially. The kids need their father to provide. I grit my teeth. She's playing victim again. I climb into my car, setting the paperwork on the passenger seat. The engine hums to life. The radio automatically clicks on with soft static. I flick it off, not wanting any distractions. Staring at the raindrops on my windshield, I feel like I'm about to cross a threshold. I'll owe mortgage, child support, spousal support. Rebecca confirmed that fault doesn't matter. Karen can walk away guilt-free from her one night. Meanwhile, the kids think I'm at fault. A twisting rage coils in my chest. Fine, I think. If the system wants to ignore her betrayal, I'll find my own way to protect myself. A memory surfaces. The night Karen threatened me with, I'll take the kids, the house, every penny you have. I clench the steering wheel. I won't be caught off guard again. If the law can't help me punish her betrayal, maybe I can use the system in other ways quietly, methodically. My phone buzzes once more. Another email, same intimidation style from Karen. I let it ring. The seeds of a plan germinate in my mind, though I don't fully grasp it yet. Something about property values, the house deed, how I might eventually leverage that. Part of me wants to strike back, to reclaim what dignity remains. With a shaky breath, I pull out of the parking lot. Step 1, sign the divorce papers. Step 2, keep calm, gather evidence, and plan for the long haul. Because if Karen wants a war, I'll engage, but I'll do it carefully, with every piece of documentation in place. I won't stoop to petty vengeance. No, my retribution will be the kind that seeps in slowly, like water through cracks, until she realizes what she lost. A week later, I'm still in that dingy apartment off Oak Street. It's evening, the sun sinking behind the row of identical brick buildings across the street, leaving everything awash in a grayish glow. I stand at my small kitchenette, tapping my foot impatiently as I wait for the microwave to ding. A half-eaten slice of leftover pizza sits on the counter. This place doesn't feel like home. The walls are sterile, the furniture is threadbare. Yet it's better than living in the toxic environment Karen created where every day would be a new confrontation. I flick through my phone's messages. Carol and Jared remain silent. I've sent them short, caring texts, no response. Emails, voicemails, nothing. My heart aches, imagining them living under the same roof as Karen, swallowing whatever story she feeds them. Your dad left us. He's controlling. He's punishing me for going out. Maybe she even claims I have a mistress who knows. She always was adept at spinning her own narrative. Suddenly my phone buzzes. I snatch it up, pulse quickening. Maybe it's Carol or Jared. Instead, it's a call from an unknown number. I hesitate but answer. Hello? A boyish voice on the other end. Ethan? This is Peter Latham, Jared's friend. My brows lift in surprise. Peter? Everything okay? He sounds uneasy. Yeah, Jared told me not to call, but Look, he's pretty upset. He keeps saying you abandoned him, that you don't care about them anymore. My chest tightens. That's not true, Peter. I love my kids. I never wanted this separation. There's a pause. I figured, but Jared's under a lot of stress. He's blaming you for leaving, but from what I overheard, it sounded complicated. I close my eyes. A rush of gratitude for this brave teenage kid reaching out. It is complicated, I murmur. But will you let him know I'm here for him no matter what he's heard? Sure, Peter says. But he's convinced you're only thinking about yourself. And well, Karen told them you're withholding money. Jared's frustrated because he needs new soccer gear, and Carol's complaining about not getting her allowance. My stomach drops. Peter, thanks for telling me. None of that's true. I'd do anything for them financially. Karen knows that. He exhales. I believe you, Mr. Maxwell, but that's what they're hearing. Anyway, I gotta go. Just thought you should know. Jared might be angry if he finds out I called. Thank you, I say quietly. I appreciate it. Stay safe, Peter. We hang up. I grip the phone, staring at the screen that now just shows the time. Karen's manipulations are in full swing. She must be telling the kids that I'm refusing to pay for their needs, turning me into some heartless monster. The microwave dings, but I ignore it, appetite gone. I recall the lawyer's advice. Document everything. I open my laptop and shoot an email to my attorney, Rebecca, summarizing Peter's call. The bitterness in me festers. Karen knows I moved half our funds out of the joint account to protect them from her threats, but I never stopped paying bills that support the children. I've put money into a separate account for child expenses, which she's refused to touch. An alert on my phone signals an incoming email from Karen. I brace myself. Subject: You're failing as a father, from Karen Maxwell. Message: Ethan, Carol, and Jared are devastated. You're too selfish to provide for them now. Carol can't afford her drama club fees. Jared needs new soccer cleats. If you truly loved them, you'd deposit money back into our joint account. Stop punishing your children for your petty vendetta against me. Karen. I let out a shaky exhale. Rage, guilt, heartbreak, they all swirl. She's controlling the kids' narrative, withholding money from them to make me look cruel, even though I offered a separate arrangement. She never gave me a chance to help. It's all part of her plan to alienate them from me. I type a reply, carefully choosing each word. Karen, I'm more than willing to pay for Carol's drama fees and Jared's soccer gear. As I stated before, I have a separate account set aside for these expenses. If you provide me with receipts or direct me to the school's payment portal, I will cover them immediately. I'm not punishing our kids. Ethan. Before sending, I screenshot the entire conversation, just like Rebecca advised. Then I hit send. The tension in my chest releases slightly, but the sadness remains. I rummage through a box of my old belongings, photos from better times, a few family Polaroids, letters from the kids when they were younger. My gaze lands on a photo of Jared at age 8, grinning after scoring his first soccer goal, his small arms in the air, me kneeling beside him with pride. The memory triggers a surge of longing. I'd do anything to return to that time. But Karen's relentless attempts to cast me as the deadbeat father are gaining traction. If the kids truly believe I deserted them, it might take a miracle to rebuild our bond. Just then, my phone buzzes again. A text, not from Karen, but from Carol. Dad, I heard about you setting aside money. If that's true, why won't you just deposit it into Mom's account? We need it. Stop playing games. My pulse leaps. At least she's contacting me, but her words cut deep. I type back rapidly, heart pounding. Carol, I'm so glad you messaged me. I'm not playing games. I'm more than happy to pay for everything you need directly. I can even send money via check or the school's payment system. Mom knows this. Please don't think I'm abandoning you. I love you. Let's talk, call me. Anytime. No response. I wait. Phone in hand, but nothing else comes through. The microwave beeps again, reminding me of the forgotten dinner. I stare at it, realizing I've lost my appetite altogether. In that silent apartment, I realize how truly alone I am. Karen's cunning manipulations are driving a wedge between me and my children, day by day. My only solace is the plan forming in my mind. Gather every piece of evidence, every communication, every example of Karen's malicious tactics. Show the court how she's alienating me. It might not turn the kids around overnight, but it's all I've got. I slump onto the small sofa, the fabric worn from countless previous tenants, and turn on the lamp. The circle of light feels weak against the shadows creeping across the rest of the room. Yet a part of me stirs with quiet determination. If she wants to paint me as the villain, I'll let the truth reveal itself eventually through patience, documentation, and maybe in the end, my unwavering willingness to love Carol and Jared, no matter how much Karen tries to turn them away. A few more weeks pass, the leaves turning gold and red outside my apartment window. Work becomes my refuge. I throw myself into design projects, calculating stress tolerances for new mechanical prototypes. Yet behind every blueprint is the relentless hum of personal crisis. My phone rings constantly with more demands from Karen. Her emails are a mix of threats and manipulative pleas. The kids remain distant, responding with cold one-liners, if at all. Each day, I log every interaction in a spreadsheet titled Documentation, tracking how Karen blocks me from actual solutions. I attach email chains, text screenshots, phone logs. At the same time, a quieter side of me is looking ahead far beyond the immediate meltdown. My father once told me, always think a few moves ahead like in chess. Maybe that's what I need to do now, because Karen sure isn't thinking about the future beyond controlling the present. My private account is secure, and I keep funneling a portion of my paycheck there each month. If I'm forced to pay large sums in the divorce, at least I'll have a safety net. Still, it's not enough. The house we purchased together has significant equity. If the court awards it to Karen for the kids' stability, I'll lose a major asset one I've poured years of mortgage payments into. But there might be a silver lining. That house is still in both our names. Even if I move out, I remain a partial owner. Late one afternoon, I slip away from my office to meet a real estate appraiser named Cynthia Doyle, recommended by a coworker. She's a middle-aged woman with a firm handshake and an analytical eye. We rendezvous at a quiet coffee shop near the courthouse. I keep my voice low, mindful of prying ears. I need a professional appraisal of the house, I tell her, sliding a photo across the table. I can't go there much right now, so I'm hoping you can do this discreetly. She scans the address, nodding. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Suburban neighborhood, yeah? I can do a drive-by appraisal to start, check interior details if possible. But I need permission from both owners to do a thorough inspection. A knot forms in my throat. That's the tricky part. My soon-to-be ex-wife might not cooperate. Cynthia hesitates. I can estimate based on comparables in the area, but a full interior inspection would yield the most accurate figure. Let's start with comparables, I say, trying to keep desperation out of my voice. Any info helps. I just need a ballpark for how much equity might be in it. She sips her latte, pulling out a notepad. Sure, I'll do some research. You want a formal report or an informal estimate? Formal, I decide. So I can provide it as evidence in court if needed. Cynthia nods. Understood. I'll have something in a week or two. Might cost you a bit, but if it helps your case, it's worth it. I let out a breath of relief. Thank you. We wrap up, and I head back to the office. On the drive, I can't help feeling a flicker of triumph. Karen may think she has all the cards, but this house is our biggest shared property. If the court tries to grant it to her for the kids, I'll at least know the exact monetary figure. If I can't keep the home, maybe I can force her to buy me out at a fair price. That night, in my cramped apartment, I open a binder I labeled House Docs. Inside are old mortgage statements, property tax records, and insurance. I go over each page, highlighting key figures. The house was purchased for $300,000 years ago back then. The neighborhood wasn't as developed. Now property values have skyrocketed. We still owe around $100,000 on the mortgage, but the place might be worth $400,000 or more, leaving a substantial chunk of equity. A plan starts to form. Let Karen enjoy living there with Devin, her new lover who's been hovering in the background. Let them believe they've won, that they own that house. Meanwhile, I'll keep track of every mortgage payment I'm forced to make. If Karen tries to refinance or sell in the future, or if I can push a future settlement, she'll have to face me. My phone lights up. A text from an unfamiliar number. Hey, Ethan, this is Mike Gonzalez from the old neighborhood. We used to see each other at block parties. Heard about the separation. Sorry, man. If you need anything, call me. Also, some rumors going around about Karen and a younger guy, Devin, I think. I stare at the words. Another friend from the neighborhood reaching out, confirming that Karen's relationship with Devin is no secret. My face burns with humiliation, but I text back politely. Mike, appreciate you reaching out. It's a tough situation, but I'm dealing with it. If you hear anything else, let me know. I hate rummaging for gossip. Yet every piece of external intel might be useful. If Karen's affair continues, especially around the kids, maybe it'll show the court that her environment isn't stable after all. A small hope, but better than none. Yawning, I set the phone down and close the binder. The clock reads 11:47 p.m. Another late night lost in paperwork and strategies. My mind drifts to the image of Jared's grin at his last soccer game, the pride in Carol's eyes when she aced a math test. Now, they won't even answer my calls. Karen's illusions push them further from me each day. I remind myself, this isn't just about winning a legal battle. It's about preserving any chance of reconnecting with my kids. If I lose this war, they might vanish from my life, fully convinced that I'm the villain who chose pride over them. That thought chills me far more than the idea of losing property or money. Pushing away the ache, I log onto a secure folder on my laptop. Label, Long Game. I copy the latest mortgage statements, Karen's texts, my phone logs, everything I can that might come in handy. This is my digital fortress, a testament to her manipulations, a record of my attempts to provide for Carol and Jared. I read back through some old texts from Karen, just to gauge the shift in her tone. I see the transition from affectionate wife months ago, miss you, can't wait till you're home, to scornful messages about, my night out is none of your business. The difference is jarring. A sense of betrayal radiates from every line. My chest tightens with anger, but also a twisted sense of resolve. Karen wants me to be a wreck, to lash out and confirm her narrative that I'm irrational or controlling. Instead, I'm methodically building a case. The slow burn approach might not satisfy my immediate hunger for justice, but it's the only way I can see to protect myself. And maybe, one day, restore my relationship with the kids. I flick off the lamp, letting the laptop screen's glow guide me to bed. Tomorrow, I'll follow up with Cynthia about the appraisal. Then I'll finalize more documents with Rebecca for the upcoming hearing. Piece by piece, I'm assembling a puzzle that Karen doesn't realize exists. She's too busy playing the victim in front of the kids, forgetting that the law can turn if presented with enough evidence of her manipulation. As I lie down, my phone vibrates again. A late-night text from Karen. Are you proud of yourself, Ethan? Kids are asleep crying while you hide in your pathetic apartment. Keep it up, soon they won't even want to see you. My hands tremble with fury and grief. Soon they won't even want to see you. She's gloating about how far she's alienated them, but I grit my teeth and screenshot the message. Another piece of evidence for the folder. Another reason to keep forging this plan within plans. I set the phone aside, staring at the dark ceiling. The apartment is silent except for the faint whir of the fridge in the kitchen. A single tear slips down my cheek. I miss my children so desperately it hurts, but I refuse to crumble. I'll endure her venom with quiet determination. In time, the truth will surface and I'll be ready. 2 months later, the day of the final divorce hearing arrives, a cold, steel-gray morning that mirrors the knot in my stomach. The previous weeks have been a blur of court motions, affidavits, and endless legal wrangling. For all the careful planning, for all the documentation, I'm still half terrified the judge will grant Karen everything she demands. I park outside the county courthouse, taking a moment to gather myself. The building looms overhead, its concrete facade drab against the overcast sky. Clutching my briefcase, I walk in, footsteps echoing against marble floors. I spot Rebecca Mills near the security checkpoint, flipping through a file. She meets my eyes, giving a small nod of reassurance. "Ready?" she asks, voice subdued. "As I'll ever be," I mutter, tension coiled tight in my chest. We make our way to the assigned courtroom. Karen is already there, seated beside her attorney, Gregory Silverman, a guy with slicked-back hair and a polished grin that barely hides his ambition. Karen avoids my gaze, her posture rigid. She's dressed in a dark blazer, hair styled just so, exuding cool confidence. Behind her, I notice Devin sitting in the gallery, her lover, the man she left me for. He's wearing a suit and looks oddly smug, as if this is a show he's front row to watch. My jaw clenches. The betrayal still stings like an open wound, but I force myself to remain calm. I catch a glimpse of Carol and Jared on the other side, their faces unreadable. My heart aches, wishing they'd at least offer me a small smile. A bailiff calls our case, and the judge, a stern-faced woman named Judge Harmon, takes her seat. Her gaze sweeps the room. Let's proceed. Rebecca stands, guiding me through the formalities. We explain the basis for divorce, irreconcilable differences. Though Karen's affair is the real reason, it barely factors legally. Karen's attorney counters with claims about my unreasonable behavior and controlling tactics, referencing how I moved money from joint accounts. My blood boils at the half-truths, but I keep my expression neutral. We move to child custody. The tension crackles as Silverman argues that Karen has been the primary caregiver and that the children prefer to stay with her full-time. I want to shout that she's manipulated them, but Judge Harmon requests to hear from the kids themselves privately, in chambers. A wave of dread floods me. If Carol and Jared have swallowed Karen's narrative, they might say they don't want me at all. Rebecca tries to present the evidence of parental alienation, my logs of unanswered calls, texts, the vitriolic messages from Karen. But the judge, though sympathetic, says, "We'll weigh all factors, counsel. For now, let's hear the children's preferences." My stomach twists. Carol and Jared file out with the bailiff to speak to the judge in private. I don't even get to hear what they say. Next is property division. Silverman pushes for Karen to keep the house for the children's stability. We counter with an appraisal from Cynthia Doyle showing the house's increased value. Rebecca demands that if Karen gets the house, I deserve half of the current equity. Karen's face twitches with annoyance. She glances back at Devin, who stares at me with thinly veiled contempt. We argue about spousal maintenance. Silverman claims Karen sacrificed her career to raise the kids, thus requiring substantial monthly support. Rebecca highlights Karen's part-time job and points out that I'm already paying the mortgage. The judge seems unimpressed by either side's extremes, wanting some middle ground. Finally, Carol and Jared return, eyes downcast. The judge disappears into her chambers, presumably to review the final details. An hour later, we're all called back. My heart hammers as Judge Harmon delivers her ruling. Divorce is granted on no-fault grounds. Custody. Karen is awarded primary physical custody, with me having scheduled visitation every other weekend and one evening per week. The judge insists I must pay child support as per state guidelines. My chest feels like it's caving in, but at least I have some formal right to see them. Spousal maintenance. I'm ordered to pay Karen a set monthly amount for 5 years. The sum is steep, but not as high as I feared. Property. Karen keeps the house for the kids, but I retain half the equity on paper. Essentially, my share is locked in until the kids graduate or Karen sells. Meanwhile, I'm also mandated to continue paying half the mortgage. My world tilts. Half the mortgage, plus child support, plus spousal maintenance. A large chunk of my monthly income is gone. Karen glances back at Devin with a triumphant flicker in her eyes. I swallow hard, my hands clammy around the edges of my briefcase. Judge Harmon's gavel taps lightly, finalizing the decree. She offers a parting statement. I encourage both parties to maintain civility for the children's sake. Then she leaves. I stand there in the hush that follows, mind spinning. Karen collects her papers, ignoring me. Devin flashes a smirk as he follows her out. I feel a stab of rage and humiliation. Carol and Jared trail after them, not even making eye contact. The heartbreak is worse than any financial blow. They chose her. They're going home with her, to that house I'm still paying for. Rebecca rests a hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Ethan. This outcome is tough, but it could have been worse. You retain an equity share, and you do have visitation. The kids might come around in time. My throat is dry. Yeah, I manage, the word feeling hollow. We exit the courtroom. The hallway buzzes with people scurrying past, other families in crisis. Karen is at the far end, speaking quietly with her lawyer. Devin stands behind her, looking bored. Carol is on her phone, and Jared gazes at the floor. My heart yearns to approach them, but their body language screams stay away. Collecting the final paperwork from Rebecca, I notice the official stamp. Final decree. 2 words that sever 15 years of marriage. I head down the corridor alone, an ache so deep it leaves me numb. Outside, the sky has turned a murky shade of winter gray. The world around me continues as normal cars honk. People chat on their phones, oblivious to the devastation I feel. In the parking lot, I slip into my car, leaning back in the seat. The divorce is final, and I'm left with crippling payments and a formalized wedge between me and my children. A war I never wanted, fought on a battlefield that was never fair. Karen has her triumph. She's got the house, the kids, and a stable flow of money from me. On the surface, it looks like she won. But as tears sting the corners of my eyes, a new resolve surfaces. She may have won a battle, but the war is far from over. I recall the seeds I've planted, the property appraisal, my careful documentation of every manipulative act, the separate account holding a fraction of my income safe from her reach. There's a bigger picture here, one that will unfold over time. Not the war, I whisper to myself. My voice trembles, but it steels me. If Karen thinks she's untouchable because the court sided with her, she's forgotten that life doesn't end at a decree. Kids grow up, finances shift, mortgages get paid down. Sooner or later, she'll have to face the consequences of her choices. I start the engine, mind whirling with half-formed strategies. Nothing I do will erase the heartbreak or bring me immediate justice. But I won't surrender. I'll keep working, keep saving, keep documenting. I'll comply with the court orders while building a quiet arsenal of facts and resources. Someday, Karen will realize that the system she manipulated has limits and that my patience can be far more powerful than her short-term gains. Blinking away tears, I drive off the courthouse grounds. The final divorce decree feels like the bitter end of one life, but maybe it's also the start of another. One where I refuse to be a victim. One where my intelligence and patience become my weapons. A slow-motion film in which time is my ally, as I gather each piece needed to eventually reclaim what's mine and ensure Karen's betrayal doesn't go unanswered forever. 2 full years have crawled by since the final decree of my divorce. At times, it feels like a lifetime. I still remember the day I walked out of that courthouse with a toxic mix of anger and heartbreak swirling in my head. Now, I exist in a strange sort of limbo, abiding by the court orders, paying my share of the mortgage, child support, and spousal maintenance while Karen and Devin live in the house that used to be mine as well. She married him a few months after our divorce was finalized. I found out from a mutual acquaintance who sent me a wedding photo via text. There they were, Karen in a sleek white gown, Devin grinning widely, both standing on our old front porch. It stung, but I expected it. Part of me almost felt relieved that she'd locked herself into a new marriage, one that might keep her out of my affairs, at least for a while. Meanwhile, my life is quiet, almost too quiet. I rent a modest townhouse in another part of town. It's nondescript with pale walls and basic furniture, but I've made it livable. My daily routine: work 8 or 9 hours at the engineering firm, come home, heat up leftovers, and spend evenings in my small garage tinkering with my latest project. A 1972 Oldsmobile Cutlass I purchased from a junkyard. It's a rusted heap with a blown engine, but I see potential beneath the decay. I spend hours with a socket wrench in hand, kneeling on the cold concrete floor, methodically restoring each piece, part mechanical therapy, part distraction. My mind quiets when I'm elbow-deep in grease, focusing on torque specs and cylinder heads. This old car becomes my haven, a place I can pour in leftover energy instead of wallowing in resentment. Most weekends I don't see my kids. I wish that weren't true, but Carol and Jared, now 18 and 16, made it clear they'd rather stay at Mom's house. The official visitation schedule from the divorce is still on paper, but they rarely follow it. Each time I ask them to hang out, they have some reason to say no. I suspect Karen's hand in that. She never hides her disdain for me. As for Devin, well, I've heard rumors that he's not exactly a faithful husband, but so far, it doesn't seem to break the facade of their happy household. Work has become my mainstay. I've quietly accepted more responsibilities at the firm. The pay is decent, and each paycheck goes through a well-rehearsed routine. A large chunk automatically funnels into a private account under my name only, an account Karen can't access. The rest goes to my monthly obligations, half the mortgage payment on the old house, spousal support, child support, plus my rent. It's burdensome, but manageable because I keep my personal expenses minimal. In the back of my mind, a plan simmers. I know from my attorney, Rebecca, that once Jared turns 18, my child support obligations shift. Same goes for spousal maintenance, which ends after 5 years unless Karen remarries. She did remarry Devin, so technically, my spousal support ended early. That was a small silver lining. Karen tried to contest it, claiming she still needed help, but the court stood firm. Still, I'm stuck paying half the mortgage on that house, building equity for the both of us. Per the divorce decree, Karen remains the primary resident for the sake of the children's stability, but I retain partial ownership. Another year or two, and my monthly obligations will change drastically when Jared finishes high school. I can almost taste the freedom. Some evenings I can't help but think about the kids. The heartbreak of them not wanting to see me still claws at my chest. I send them texts, simple check-ins. How's school? Or, hey, need anything for soccer? Jared rarely replies. And if he does, it's a curt "I'm good." Carol is older now, out of high school, supposedly taking some community college courses. She's cooler in her messages. Sorry, busy with classes. And that's that. Still, I keep a small but steady contact fund for them. If they ever text me about expenses, I'm ready. Karen seldom asks me directly for child-related costs anymore because she doesn't want to acknowledge my willingness to pay. Instead, she moans to the kids that I'm tight-fisted, hoping they'll resent me. At least I have a paper trail of every message I send offering to cover fees. One afternoon, I get a call from my father, whom I haven't spoken to regularly since the divorce drama. He's mild-mannered, always tried to stay neutral, but I know he sides with me quietly. "Ethan," he says, "I heard from a friend that Devon's been spotted at some bars with different women. Are you okay?" I swallow, tension gnawing at my gut. "I'm fine, Dad. Karen's made her bed. She can lie in it. I'm just focusing on me." My father hesitates. "I understand. Just be careful. If that marriage falls apart, Karen might come after you again for more money if the kids are still living with her." "Thanks for the warning," I reply, half laughing bitterly. "But you know me, Dad. I've got a plan." He sighs. "All right. I just hate seeing the family torn like this." After we hang up, I stand in my cluttered living room, phone in hand, heart heavy. My father's caution resonates. If Karen's new marriage implodes, she'll be desperate to maintain her lifestyle. That might push her to do something drastic like claiming more from me or refusing to sell the house. But the law is mostly set. She can't resurrect spousal support post-remarriage, and the mortgage arrangement has a ticking clock. Soon the kids will be adults. The children's stability excuse no longer applies. So I wait. One day bleeds into the next. My 1972 Cutlass gradually shows signs of life. I rebuild the engine with a fresh crankshaft and new piston rings. The day I finally turn the ignition and hear that low rumble, I feel a rush of triumph. This car is a symbol, in a way. I'm restoring something broken, forging it into something strong. It's methodical, slow, and meticulous, just like my approach to regaining control of my life. Throughout it all, Karen remains a ghost on the periphery. She occasionally emails me about mortgage statements or property tax forms. If she's in a foul mood, she adds a snarky comment about how lucky I am not to have to raise 2 teenagers. I keep my replies polite and short. Document everything, I remind myself. My digital folder of communications grows every week. Around this time, I run into an old acquaintance, Daryl, at a grocery store. He used to live a few houses down from us. After some awkward small talk, he says, "Heard Karen's still living in that big place with her new hubby. She always brags about how you're paying half the mortgage. Man, that's rough." I stiffen. "Yeah, court orders." He shrugs sympathetically. "Well, hang in there. People notice these things. She's not exactly popular in the neighborhood. Word is, she's throwing fancy parties, acting like Devon's money grows on trees." I grit my teeth. So they're flaunting the house as if it's solely theirs. Fine. Let them bury themselves in illusions. Because a day will come when that illusion pops, and I'll be waiting with every bank statement and legal advantage I've gathered. Back home, I update a spreadsheet with my monthly contributions toward the mortgage, my quiet ledger of how much equity is technically mine. Part of me wonders if Karen even sees these numbers, or if she just glances at her checking account to confirm the direct deposit cleared. Probably the latter. She's never been big on details unless it benefits her. And so, life continues in a muted routine. I channel my frustration into working longer hours, building up savings, and staying prepared. I rarely speak of Karen to anyone except my lawyer or a close friend. People assume I'm over it, that I've moved on. In truth, I'm just harnessing that bitterness into a steady resolve, because I know that eventually, Karen's fragile world might crack, especially if Devon's rumored infidelities are real. If or when that happens, she'll face financial strain. She might default on bills or worse, try to cling to the house by demanding more help from me. That's the waiting game. I keep paying, keep documenting, keep living a humble life, letting her believe she won. She has her new marriage, her kids under her roof, my money partially propping them up. But as each month passes, I'm effectively buying more and more shares in that property. So if she ever tries to cut me out of the house entirely, or sells it, or ends up in court again, I'll be right there with the receipts. Late one evening, I placed the final detail on the cutlass, a polished chrome piece along the fender. I wiped my hands on a rag, admiring the gleam under my garage's fluorescent light. The engine purrs strong, ready for the open road. In a small, twisted way, I'm grateful for the heartbreak that drove me to undertake this project. It gave me a focus beyond Karen's manipulations. I pictured Devin and Karen in that house, possibly arguing about money or each other's fidelity. Maybe the kids hear the fights through their bedroom walls. A pang of guilt hits me. I didn't want them in a broken home, but Karen forced my hand. Still, my main weapon is patience. One day, this entire setup will shift in my favor, and I'll be prepared. I look at the car again, imagining the day I'll drive it past that old house with my head held high. For now, I wait. And with each passing day, I methodically ensure that when the moment comes, Karen will have no choice but to meet me on my terms. The turning point arrives on a brisk autumn afternoon. I'm sitting at my office desk, reviewing a set of mechanical drawings, when my personal phone buzzes. An unknown number. Usually I'd ignore it, but something in my gut prompts me to answer. "Hello?" I say warily. A curt female voice replies, "Ethan Maxwell?" "Yes." "This is Clara from Mills and Branson Family Law, calling on behalf of Rebecca Mills. We received notice from opposing counsel representing Miss Karen Price." She pauses. "She's petitioning to revise certain financial obligations." My pulse quickens. Karen Price. Then I recall, she changed her last name when she married Devin Price. What does she want now? Clara hesitates. Actually, it's about a second divorce. She and Devin are filing for an uncontested dissolution. However, there's also mention of your existing property arrangement. She may be seeking more financial support to maintain the house. I close my eyes briefly. So the rumors were true. Karen and Devin are divorcing. What about child support? Jared's still under 18, but Carol's an adult now. Clara flips through papers. Yes, that's part of the conversation. We recommend you come in and discuss next steps with Miss Mills. When can you meet? I check my schedule, my heart thudding. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., I say, ignoring the knot of mixed relief and anxiety in my stomach. We finalize the appointment. After hanging up, I slump in my chair, staring at the blueprint in front of me without really seeing it. Karen's second marriage is ending irreconcilable differences, I bet. If Devin's divorcing her, that means she loses his financial support. She'll be desperate to hold on to the house, especially with Jared still living there. By extension, she might again try to dig into my wallet or negotiate new terms. That evening, I pace my townhouse, old anxieties clawing at me. I haven't spoken to the kids much, so I don't even know how they feel about Devin leaving. Are they upset? Or do they resent me further for not stepping in? My phone hasn't rung with their names on it. As usual, Karen isolates them from me. The next day, I drive to the law firm. The weather matches my mood: overcast skies, biting wind. In the conference room, Rebecca Mills greets me with her usual firm handshake. She's older than when we first met, strands of gray at her temples, but still sharp. Good to see you, Ethan, she says, flipping open a folder. Clara steps out, leaving us alone. Rebecca gestures for me to sit. So, Karen Price has officially filed for divorce from Devin Price. They were married just under 2 years. He's citing irreconcilable differences, no major dispute over assets. However, the mortgage is still in your name and Karen's. She remains in that house. I tap the table. What does she want? Her motion indicates she can't afford the mortgage on her own and wants you to continue paying half until Jared finishes high school. Rebecca glances up. But in reality, she might try to push for more if her finances are unstable. An ironic laugh escapes me. So she remarried, it fell apart, and now she's turning to me to keep her afloat again? Rebecca nods, sympathetically. Yes. Legally, the original divorce decree stands. You pay half the mortgage, child support until Jared is 18, and that's it. She might petition the court to increase child support based on changing circumstances, but you can argue that your situation hasn't changed. Plus, she had a second spouse for a while, which ended. That's not your fault. and spousal maintenance ended when she married Devin, right? Correct, Rebecca confirms. She can't reinstate that. The key here is child support for Jared and the mortgage obligation until he's out of high school. I exhale, tension easing slightly. So the best she can do is try to tweak child support. She can't get more spousal support. But maybe there's an opening for me to force a buyout of the house? Rebecca's eyebrows rise. Potentially, yes. Once Jared nears 18, you can argue that the reason she was granted exclusive residence child stability no longer applies. If she can't afford it, she might have to sell or buy out your share. I feel a spark of triumph. I'd prefer a buyout. I've poured thousands into that mortgage for years without living there. At the very least, I want my equity paid out. Rebecca smiles thinly. Exactly. We can push that angle, but we should see how Karen's finances shape up during her second divorce. Devin might settle something with her. If not, she'll be scrambling. That's likely where we have leverage. I leave the meeting with a renewed sense of determination. The time for a real confrontation over the house is drawing closer. If Karen can't afford it alone, and Jared's about to turn 18 next year, I can finally push for a resolution. Either she sells, or she compensates me for my share. My revenge seeds are sprouting. Soon after, I get a call from Jared out of the blue. My heart leaps when I see his name. "Dad?" he says, voice subdued. Can we talk?" I step into my living room, phone pressed to my ear. "Of course, son. Everything okay?" A pause. "Devin moved out," he mutters. "Mom's not good. She's yelling a lot, blaming me for random stuff. She says we might have to move if we can't keep up with bills. I don't know what to do." A flood of pity and relief washes over me. He's finally reaching out. "Jared, I'm sorry you're dealing with that. Do you want to come stay with me?" He hesitates. I'm not sure. Mom would flip. She keeps saying we need to stick together. But I just wanted to. I guess I wanted to talk to you. The raw vulnerability in his voice stings my chest. He's still a minor, caught in Karen's meltdown. "Look, I'm here anytime. If you need money for anything or a place to stay, you've got it. I won't push you, but I care about you." A shaky sigh from the other end. "Thanks, Dad. This divorce stuff is messed up. I wish it didn't drag you in, but Mom keeps swearing you owe her more because she can't pay. I just feel stuck." I swallow the surge of anger at Karen. "It's not your fault. I owe certain things by law and I'm paying them. If your mom's finances change, that's on her. You focus on your school and your well-being." He sniffles. "Okay, gotta go. She's coming upstairs." Click. The call ends. I stand there, phone in hand, heart pounding. The realization is stark. Karen's second marriage is crumbling, and Jared is finally seeing her manipulations up close. It gives me a strange mix of hope and sadness. Maybe I'll reconnect with him, but only through the wreckage of another broken home. In the following weeks, I keep an ear to the ground. Whispers swirl. Devin filed an irreconcilable differences claim, and apparently he's done paying anything for the house. Karen is left holding the bag. Meanwhile, I still deposit my half of the mortgage because that's the court order. She's furious she can't twist that into additional funds. People say she complains constantly about how it's not fair she has to pay bills alone. Rebecca forwards me an email from Karen's new attorney, a mild request to discuss potential modifications to child support. We respond that we'll consider it if we see full financial disclosures. The attorney's tone is curt. Karen doesn't want to open her finances to scrutiny, but if she's seeking more money, she'll have to. Then it hits me. This is the perfect chance to push for my buyout. If Karen's forced to show she's broke, she won't be able to keep the house. That's the lever I've been waiting for. The tension in my shoulders eases. The master plan is unfolding. Standing in my garage next to my restored Cutlass, I run my hand along the smooth, freshly painted hood. A sense of calm determination settles over me. The day is coming when I'll reclaim my equity or watch her fail to keep the property afloat. Either way, I'll have closure on that last anchor tying us together. For now, Karen's second marriage meltdown is the tipping point. She bet everything on Devin money, credibility, future, and lost. She's turning to me as a fallback, but I'm no longer the clueless husband she once pushed around. My documentation is thorough, my finances stable, My children old enough to see glimpses of her desperation. Yes, this is the turning point, and I'm ready to finally turn the tables. Karen's second divorce finalizes in what feels like record time. Devin had no interest in dragging it out. Once he realized Karen was demanding he cover the mortgage and lifestyle expenses, he cut ties and walked away. Rumors swirl through our old neighborhood. He discovered she'd been unfaithful to him as well, hooking up with men from her gym. Or maybe he cheated first. Either way, their marriage ends in a swirl of gossip and shame. I hear about it all secondhand calls from curious neighbors, texts from old acquaintances, even a fleeting conversation with Jared. He says, "Devin left in a hurry, Dad. Mom screamed at him to come back, threatened him with lawyers, but he just said I'm done. She's falling apart." I keep my replies measured, trying not to sound gleeful. Though a dark part of me feels vindicated, I mostly pity Jared, who's bearing the brunt of Karen's meltdown. Carol is rarely home now, busy with her college courses and friends, leaving Jared alone to face the chaos. Soon enough, the financial ripples begin. Karen can't meet the mortgage payments on her own. She calls me repeatedly, demanding I pay more than half, or else the house will go into foreclosure. I remind her of the divorce decree. I pay exactly half. It's her responsibility to cover the rest. She hurls insults, claiming I'm trying to ruin the kids' lives by letting the house slip away. I calmly document each call, each text, each accusation. Then a new legal summons arrives at my door. Karen is attempting to force an increase in child support to cover the mortgage shortfall. My lawyer, Rebecca, files a response, pointing out that the mortgage arrangement is separate from child support and that Jared's nearing 18 anyway. The real crux is that Karen's finances have collapsed due to her second divorce, not because of any action I took. Meanwhile, local gossip about Karen's affairs flies around social media. A neighbor named Hannah posts on a community forum about seeing Karen sneak around with multiple men. Another neighbor, George, tweets about overhearing explosive arguments from within that house. The same folks who once believed Karen's sob story about me are now side-eyeing her. She's effectively become a pariah in her own circle. One afternoon, I get a call from Natalie, an old friend of Karen's who I never expected to hear from again. "Ethan, I don't usually get in the middle of this stuff, but Karen's off the rails. She's telling people you owe her money, that you're behind on mortgage payments." "Is that true?" My stomach churns with disgust at the lie. "No, I pay exactly what the court ordered, every month, on time. I have the proof." Natalie sighs. "I figured. I just wanted to let you know. She's lost a lot of friends because of all this drama and gossip. People see the pattern now. She cheated on you, then on Devin, and tries to blame everyone else." We end the call, and I reflect on how drastically the tide has turned. The illusions Karen spun about me being the evil ex-husband are unraveling. Neighbors and old friends watch her meltdown with disapproval, whispering about her affairs and financial irresponsibility. She's paying the price socially. But the public fallout alone doesn't bring me closure. My real goal is to resolve the house issue and secure the equity that's rightfully mine. So, when my lawyer calls with an update, I pick up, heart racing. "Ethan," Rebecca says, "Karen's attorney reached out with a settlement offer. She wants you to agree to a temporary increase in monthly contributions to the mortgage until Jared graduates, in exchange for not pursuing child support modifications in court." I snort. That's a raw deal. She's basically asking me to hand her money for free. I'd rather go to court. Rebecca chuckles softly. "I agree. We can push back, maybe propose a different route. What if we suggest Karen list the house for sale? If she can't afford it, that might be the best solution." I pause, feeling the sweet potential of that idea. She'll never agree voluntarily, but if the mortgage is behind, foreclosure is a real threat. "Exactly," Rebecca affirms. "If she can't bring the loan current, the bank could start proceedings. That'd hurt both of your credits. But if we show that you've kept your share paid on time, it's mostly on her. She might be forced to sell before it hits foreclosure." A wave of grim satisfaction washes over me. Then let's push for that. Or a buyout, though I doubt she has the funds. We prepare a counteroffer. I'll keep paying half the mortgage at the current rate, no more, and in return, once Jared turns 18, Karen must refinance or sell. The letter is formal, direct, and politely points out that if she fails to meet her half, she'll face losing the house entirely. Days later, word spreads that the bank sent Karen a notice of default for missing multiple payments. She's behind by a couple months. The possibility of foreclosure looms. Panicked, she tries to rally neighbors to help save the house for Jared's sake, but no one is eager to bail her out, especially given her tarnished reputation. A forced settlement emerges. After furious back-and-forth negotiations, Karen's attorney concedes that she can't salvage the mortgage alone. In a last-ditch attempt, she tries to guilt me into paying more, but we refuse. The judge, overseeing the situation, warns Karen that if she can't fulfill her obligations, the property may need to be sold to protect my ownership stake. She's cornered. The final blow lands in an emergency hearing. Karen sits at a table with her lawyer, looking worn and frazzled. I'm across the aisle with Rebecca. The judge glances over the default notices, the missed payments, the half I've consistently paid. Then the judge looks squarely at Karen. You either cure the default by a set date or list the house for sale, the judge says, voice stern. Your ex-husband is fulfilling his portion, but you aren't. The child is nearly 18, and if you can't afford this property, you must allow a sale or buy him out. Karen's face goes pale. She pleads for more time, claiming the unfairness of it all, but the judge is unmoved. The court sets a strict deadline. If Karen fails to catch up on her half, the property must be put on the market immediately. Outside the courtroom, Karen glares at me with furious tears in her eyes. This is your fault, she hisses. If you'd just paid more, none of this would happen. I hold her gaze, a wave of complicated emotions rising in my chest, anger, pity, old heartbreak. I paid exactly what was fair. You chose to cheat, to remarry, to let the bills lapse. This is on you, Karen. She storms off, leaving me standing there, half satisfied, half hollow. I recall the early days when we had a strong marriage, raising Carol and Jared in that same house she's now about to lose. The irony is bitter. She once told me I'd be the one to lose everything. But here we are, and she's the one with no finances, no faithful partner, and no support from neighbors or friends. Triumph bubbles in me, but it's not pure joy. There's sadness, too, especially for Jared, who might be uprooted right before college. Still, the law is the law, and I've played my part perfectly. Documenting, waiting, building a quiet fortress of facts. Karen's public downfall is happening exactly the way I suspected it would. By the time I drive home, the sense of finality sets in. The house, my old house, will either be sold or forcibly refinanced. Either way, I'm about to see a chunk of money come back to me. My emotional revenge is overshadowed by the practical satisfaction of reclaiming what she stole, my pride, my finances, my sense of fairness. In the next few days, the local rumor mill intensifies. Folks gossip that Karen is on the verge of losing her home, that Devin left her with a mountain of bills, that she cheated one too many times. She tries to spin her sob story, but people aren't buying it anymore. She's humiliated, while I maintain a quiet, consistent stance just like I planned. My slow-burn approach is paying off. Yet, as the forced settlement looms, I'm caught off guard by an unexpected pang of regret. The day I moved into that house with Karen was a lifetime ago, full of promise. Now it's the stage for her ruin. A part of me wonders, is there any peace to be found in all this? But that flicker of sympathy is overshadowed by the memory of her betrayal, her manipulations, how she turned my kids against me. No, this is the outcome she chose. My job is to follow through. As the judge's deadline ticks closer, I brace for the next wave. Either Karen coughs up a buyout, or the sign goes up on the front lawn. Either way, the forced settlement is my moment of triumph and an unspoken cautionary tale about how one betrayal can topple a lifetime of trust. A month later, I'm standing on the sidewalk across from my old house, a for sale sign planted in the yard. The big oak tree still stretches over the driveway, leaves turning yellow as autumn creeps in. It's eerily reminiscent of the day I first moved in, carrying boxes with Karen, both of us excited to start a family. Now the place is stripped of that warmth, overshadowed by financial strain and betrayal. The official listing price is higher than I expected. Karen is desperate to recoup as much money as possible. But the real estate market can be fickle. A couple of prospective buyers walk through with an agent, eyeing the exterior. I catch glimpses of them pointing at the shutters and porch. Then they leave in silence. I'm not inside. Karen refused to let me join showings. I'm only here to see with my own eyes that the sale process has indeed started. Her attorney hammered out an agreement with mine. Once the house sells, the mortgage is paid off and any profit is split. If it doesn't sell in a set time frame, we reduce the price. If Karen tries to sabotage the sale, the court can intervene. I sigh, heading back to my car. My phone buzzes. A text from Jared. Mom's furious about the sale. She says it's your fault. I told her I'm just tired. I might stay with a friend until I graduate. My chest tightens. This entire fiasco is wearing down my son, but at least he's talking to me, albeit sporadically. I text back, I'm sorry, it's rough. If you ever want to stay at my place, the door's open. Love you. No reply yet, but that's normal. I climb into my car, the engine rumbling softly. My lawyer told me we might get an offer soon. The property's location is decent, and aside from emotional baggage, it's physically in good shape. Once a serious buyer appears, we'll finalize the deal. The day the sale closes, I'll receive my portion of the equity money I've effectively been investing all these years by paying the mortgage. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, I get the call. A real estate agent confirms a buyer offered just below asking price, and Karen, strapped for cash, quickly accepted. I meet with the agent the following Monday to sign documents. Karen is present too, sitting across a polished wooden table, looking gaunt and exhausted. She doesn't even acknowledge me when I arrive. Her eyes have dark circles and her hair looks unkempt. She clutches a pen so tightly her knuckles whiten. The agent points to various spots where we must sign. I do so carefully, reading each line to ensure I'm not missing hidden clauses. My heart hammers. This is it. The final severing of the house that once symbolized my family life. When I finish, I slide the paperwork over. Karen scrawls her signature, jaw set, tears brimming in her eyes. For a fleeting moment, I see the woman I married all those years ago, overshadowed by bitterness and regret. She glances at me, and for half a second, our eyes lock. It's a look that silently says, this is really happening. Then she steels herself and shoves the papers away. The agent smiles stiffly. Great. The closing will take place in about 3 weeks. Once that's done, proceeds will be disbursed as per your legal agreement. Karen stands abruptly, face flushed. She mumbles a goodbye to the agent and practically runs out the door. The agent gives me a sympathetic shrug. I guess this is hard for her. Divorce and a second breakup. Best of luck, Mr. Maxwell. I nod, swallowing a lump in my throat. Hard or not, she caused this. I gather my things and walk out, phone in hand. The sun glares down on the asphalt, intensifying the surreal feeling that I'm stepping away from a life chapter that can't be salvaged. 3 weeks later, the closing proceeds without drama. I'm at my lawyer's office when I receive the bank notification, a sizable sum deposited into my personal account, labeled Property Equity Settlement. My share after paying off the remainder of the mortgage, fees, and Karen's portion is still substantial. More than I hoped. Enough to buy a modest place outright or invest for the future. Sitting in my car, engine off, I stare at the transaction details on my phone screen. I'd pictured this moment 1,000 times, finally reclaiming the equity I poured into that house. Part of me expects to feel jubilant, maybe a rush of triumph. Instead, a wave of emptiness envelops me. So many memories: Carol's first birthday party, Jared's soccer trophies, family dinners tied to that property. Now it's all intangible, sold to strangers, the funds reduced to a digital number on a bank app. The local news of Karen losing the house spreads quickly among old neighbors. Some are sympathetic, but many whisper that she reaped what she sowed. She can't afford to stay in the neighborhood and moves into a smaller, run-down apartment across town. Gossip says she sits alone, rarely socializing, job hunting because her part-time gig can't cover everything. Devon's out of her life. She's on her own. I feel a pang of pity for the woman I once loved, who's become a shell of her former confident self. But I also recall her threats, the nights I cried over her betrayal, how she weaponized my kids against me. This is the bitter end she orchestrated in a way. A few days pass. I deposit some of the money into a secure investment fund. The rest I keep liquid, uncertain what the future holds. My townhouse suddenly feels too quiet, too sterile. I consider using the equity to purchase a new home, but the idea of living alone in another big house feels hollow. My kids barely visit anyway. Perhaps I'll just keep saving, see what life brings. Jared texts me once more. So house is sold, we're packing. Mom's a wreck. I can't handle her mood swings. Might crash at a buddy's place or maybe your place if that's cool. My heart leaps. Of course it's cool, I reply immediately, giving him my address. You're always welcome. I've got a spare room. No pressure, just let me know. He never confirmed a move-in date, but at least it's a start. Maybe in the aftermath of Karen's downfall, I can rebuild a relationship with my son. As for Carol, she remains distant, forging her own path. I respect that, though I send her occasional messages, letting her know I'm here if she needs me. Late at night, I sit in my garage next to the finished Cutlass. I have the overhead lights off, the only illumination coming from a small lamp on my workbench. The shapes of the engine and chassis glint in the semi-darkness. A hush envelops me. My phone shows the bank balance with that large deposit proof that the final tie to Karen is severed, my revenge complete. She took a gamble on betrayal, and now she pays the price in social scorn and a cramped apartment. And yet, my sense of victory is tempered by a quiet sorrow. My children's trust was a casualty in this war. I have money, but I still don't have the close family life I once dreamed of. The settlement feels like a hollow trophy, a measure of justice, yes, but no guarantee of healing the deeper wounds. I place a hand on the Cutlass's hood, feeling the smooth metal. This car was once junk, now it's restored, shining, a testament to patience and perseverance. Maybe I can do the same with my life piece by piece, build something better from the wreckage. The revenge is done, but the emptiness remains, a reminder that money can't buy back everything lost. As I flip off the lamp and head inside, I remind myself that at least I'm free now. Free from Karen's manipulations, free from paying a mortgage on a house I don't live in, free to move forward. The next chapter of my life is unwritten. For now, I'll let the calm hush settle in, knowing I won the war but at a cost I never wanted to pay. I never imagined myself at a classic car show alone on a Saturday morning, but here I am, navigating rows of gleaming hoods and polished chrome. The air smells of wax, engine oil, and hot pavement. Strolling past restored Mustangs, vintage Camaros, and a lineup of chrome-laden trucks, I feel a calm I haven't known in years. I've come to display my newly finished 1972 Oldsmobile Cutlass, the car that saved me from drowning in bitterness after my divorce from Karen. I spent countless nights in my cramped garage, piece by piece, turning rust into shine. Now I find myself a bit nervous, like a kid unveiling a science project in front of a crowd. I park in my allotted space, pop the hood, and wipe away a non-existent speck of dust from the fender. Around me, other car enthusiasts arrange folding chairs and chat about horsepower and paint jobs. The announcer's voice crackles from loudspeakers, welcoming everyone, reminding us of the lunchtime raffle. I try to relax, reminding myself this is supposed to be fun. As I'm arranging my small table of flyers with before and after photos of the Cutlass, someone steps up. "Sweet ride," a woman's voice says. I turn to see a petite brunette with a friendly smile. She's around my age, wearing jeans and a simple blouse. Her hair is pulled into a short ponytail, sunglasses perched on her head. Behind her stands a teenage girl, maybe 15 or 16, with folded arms and a skeptical expression. "Thanks," I reply, straightening. "Took me a couple of years to get it from junk to presentable." The woman's eyes wander over the engine. I can tell. It's immaculate. She holds out her hand. "I'm Michelle Baker. My daughter Juliet and I came to show off our '68 Mustang over in that row." She points to a bright red car gleaming under the sun. I take her hand briefly, noticing the firmness of her grip. "Ethan Maxwell. Pleasure to meet you both." I glance at Juliet, who offers a polite nod but stays quiet, eyes darting between me and the Cutlass. Michelle continues, "We're new to this circuit. My ex-husband introduced me to car shows ages ago, but well, let's say he's out of the picture now. I ended up with the Mustang." A slight sadness flickers in her eyes, but she musters a smile. I sense a kinship. "I rebuilt mine after my own divorce. It helped keep my mind busy." Juliet snorts softly, but not in a mean way, more like she's heard it all before from her mom. "You guys sound like a self-help group for car fanatics," she says, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. There's a fierce protectiveness in her expression, like she's wary of me. Michelle shoots her daughter a gentle warning glance, then looks back at me. Anyway, we're going to walk around. Would you mind if we come back later? Maybe learn more about your engine work? Sure, I'd like that, I say. And I want to check out your Mustang too, if that's okay. Michelle grins. Absolutely. It's near the tent with the big car club banner. They wander off, leaving me slightly intrigued. There was an immediate warmth to Michelle, balanced by a hint of guardedness, like someone who's been hurt but isn't completely closed off. Juliet's defensive posture reminds me of my own kids, Carol and Jared, who are older now but were once equally protective of their mother. I shake off the thought and pass the next hour talking with curious onlookers who admire the Cutlass. A few swap phone numbers for restoration tips. The midday sun grows intense, so I duck under a canopy near a burger stand. That's where I spot Michelle and Juliet again, grabbing lemonade. They wave me over, and I join them at a small table, grateful for the shade. Juliet rolls her eyes as Michelle fawns over the best lemonade in the county, but she sips it anyway. Michelle turns to me, her expression earnest. So, you said you rebuilt that Olds after your divorce. Were you always into cars? I shrug, sipping my drink. I liked them, but it became a serious hobby after. My marriage fell apart. Gave me something to focus on instead of the mess. She nods sympathetically. I can relate. My ex cheated on me, so I ended up with the Mustang in the settlement. Figured I'd make the best of it. We come to these shows to remind ourselves there's still joy in the world, right, Jules? Juliet shrugs. Sure, Mom. She glances at me. So your ex, did she cheat too? A lump forms in my throat. I cast a quick glance at Michelle, who looks mortified by her daughter's direct question. But I decide to answer honestly within reason. She did, yeah. It was rough. But I'm trying to move on, you know? Juliet's gaze softens a fraction. That sucks, she mutters, then looks down at her lemonade. Michelle clears her throat. I'm sorry, Ethan. She's blunt, but we're both in this new phase of life, learning how to deal with stuff. It's okay, I say, offering a small smile. Honesty's refreshing. Anyway, I'd love to see your Mustang if you have time. Michelle brightens. Yes, let's go. Jules, you want to show him the custom paint job? Sure, Juliet replies with a resigned shrug, but she stands up willingly. Walking together, we navigate the rows of classic cars until we reach the bright red '68 Mustang. Michelle proudly lifts the hood, revealing a well-maintained V8. She points out modifications, while Juliet mostly hovers nearby, adding a comment here or there about the tinted windows or the new stereo system. I'm genuinely impressed. This is amazing, I say, running a hand over the fender. Engine looks stock, but it's super clean. Did you do some of the work yourselves? Michelle nods. Some was done professionally, but I replaced the intake manifold with help from a friend. We bonded over our mutual exes and decided we'd fix up our cars as a form of therapy. She laughs at herself. Car therapy, I muse. That's exactly what the Cutlass is for me. We stroll back to the main thoroughfare where an announcer calls for participants in a midday parade lap around the fairgrounds. Michelle glances at me. Want to do it? I've never done a parade lap before, but it might be fun. I grin. Sure, I'm game. We head off to our respective cars, but in the chaos, Michelle calls out, Wait, do you mind if Jules rides with you? She's dying to see the inside of your Olds, right, Jules? Juliet looks momentarily surprised, but shrugs. Why not? She climbs into the passenger seat of my Cutlass, while Michelle returns to the Mustang. Moments later, we all line up behind a row of vehicles. The announcer waves us forward in a slow procession. Don't worry about being chatty, I say to Juliet, sensing her teen nerves. Just enjoy the ride. She's got a rebuilt V8 that purrs. She nods, eyes fixed on the dash. It's kind of cool, she admits after a moment. I thought old cars were just old, but this is smooth. I can't help smiling. Thank you. That means a lot. As we cruise around the fairgrounds, sunlight glints off our polished hoods. Spectators line the path, snapping photos, cheering as we pass. I spot Michelle a few cars ahead in her red Mustang, giving us a thumbs-up out the window. The entire moment feels surreal, like I'm living someone else's carefree life for once. Not the divorced dad with emotional baggage. just a car enthusiast enjoying the day. After the lap, we park again, and Juliet hops out with a half smile. "Thanks," she says. "It was fun." Then she notices Michelle approaching. "Mom, can we get ice cream or something?" Michelle nods, turning to me. "You want to join us, Ethan? We're about done here. Might grab a bite in town. There's a diner about 10 minutes away." I pause, my heart fluttering unexpectedly. I haven't felt a casual invitation like this in a long time, someone reaching out just for company, not because of a hidden agenda or family feud. "I'd like that," I reply. "I'll follow your car." We wrap up at the show, folding chairs and collecting our things. Before heading to the diner, I can't resist a final glance at my cutlass, remembering how it symbolized my heartbreak turned into determination. Now, it's led me to a friendly woman with a teenage daughter, both of whom share a passion for classic cars and maybe a cautious hope for new connections. At the diner, the conversation flows surprisingly easy. Michelle and I talk about our jobs. She's an administrative assistant at a small law firm, ironically, and we swap stories of questionable exes. Juliet keeps mostly quiet, but occasionally chimes in with a wry comment or question. She's not quite trusting yet, but I sense she doesn't hate me. As the meal winds down, Michelle checks her watch. "We should head back. Juliet's got homework, and I need to run errands." She meets my gaze with a warm softness. "But this was nice. Really nice. Maybe we can meet up again sometime?" "Absolutely," I say, trying not to sound too eager. "Can I give you my number?" She grins, offering her phone. We exchange contact info. My stomach does a small flip, a mix of nerves and excitement. I haven't felt this in ages, a spark of potential beyond the heartbreak that once consumed me. Saying our goodbyes in the parking lot, I watch them drive off in the red Mustang. Juliet waves shyly, and Michelle mouths the words, "Thank you." I head to my cutlass with a slight tremor in my hands. The day began with me showcasing a restored car, but I'm leaving with something more valuable, a new sense of possibility. As I start the engine, I realize how long it's been since I allowed myself to even consider a future that involves companionship. Karen's betrayal and the subsequent legal war left me cautious, maybe even jaded. Yet Michelle's gentle honesty and shared experience of betrayal resonates. And Juliet, with her guarded but curious nature, reminds me of my kids now grown enough to have their own lives. I drive home, windows down, letting the evening breeze swirl around me. The slow-motion film of my life speeds up just a fraction, tinted now with a faint optimism. I'm not sure where this connection will lead. All I know is that for the first time since my divorce, I feel the heavy armor of bitterness crack, allowing a fragile spark of hope to shine through. Over the next few weeks, Michelle and I develop a comfortable pattern of phone calls and spontaneous meetups. It starts with short, casual chats. "How's your day going?" Or, "How's Juliet liking her classes?" But gradually, they extend into late-night conversations that stretch for hours. There's something about Michelle's voice, calm, empathetic, tinged with her own brand of humor that makes me open up in ways I haven't in years. I learn more about her background. She was married to a man named Brian who cheated on her multiple times, culminating in a messy divorce. She ended up with the Mustang as part of the settlement, a pointed reminder of her ex's final betrayal. She has no illusions about how ugly relationships can get, yet she hasn't let bitterness define her. Hearing her resilience encourages me to question my own cynicism. One Saturday, Michelle invites me to her modest, two-bedroom rental house. "I'm reorganizing the living room," she says over the phone, "and it'd be great to get a second opinion on the layout. Also, I might bribe you with homemade chili." I laugh. "Chili? You're speaking my language. Count me in." When I arrive, Juliet is sprawled on the couch, reading a thick textbook, something for her advanced classes, presumably. She gives me a polite nod, then waves me over. "Mom's in the kitchen, but the furniture puzzle is all hers. Good luck." I find Michelle amid half-empty boxes and stacks of mismatched throw pillows. She looks up, hair tied in a messy bun, wearing an oversized t-shirt that says, "Cars before boys." The sight tugs a grin from me. "Oh, hey, Ethan," she says, wiping her forehead. "I'm trying to figure out the best place for this bookshelf, but the living room's in awkward shape." I step closer, scanning the layout. A couch along one wall, a small TV stand on the opposite side, and limited space for a bulky bookshelf. What if we angle it in the corner so it's diagonal? That might free up some walkway. Her eyes light up. Brilliant. Let's do it. Together we shuffle the bookshelf, adjusting inch by inch. Juliet wanders in, leaning on the doorframe with mild curiosity. Michelle steps back, hands on her hips. This looks better, right? Much better, I confirm. She laughs, dusting her hands. Great. Now I can actually see the TV from the kitchen, so if Juliet's hogging the couch, I can still watch my shows. Juliet rolls her eyes good-naturedly. Mom, you're so dramatic. But there's a hint of affection in her tone. Over lunch, Michelle's homemade chili and steaming bowls, I share bits about my own living situation. I rent a townhouse right now. Had to downsize after the divorce, but it's cozy, I guess. Michelle nods. I know the feeling. After I moved out from Brian, we ended up here. It's not fancy, but it works. She glances at Juliet. We've made it our own little world, right, kiddo? Juliet shrugs, mouth full of chili. Yeah, it's not so bad. I catch a glimpse of a framed photo on the side table. Michelle and Juliet, arms around each other, smiling at some beach. The edges of the frame are chipped, but the photo exudes warmth. For a moment, I feel a pang, recalling how pictures of my own kids used to fill my old house. Now everything is scattered, just like my relationship with them. As if sensing my mood, Michelle gently changes the subject to music. Soon we're joking about songs we grew up with, and Juliet offers mock horror at our ancient tastes. She smirks when I mention old rock bands. You guys sound like my uncle who still collects vinyl. We end the afternoon in the driveway, leaning against the Mustang while chatting about random topics. A breeze carries the faint scent of leaves, hinting at changing seasons. As I prepare to leave, Michelle's eyes linger on me a moment longer than usual. There's an unspoken question there, a flicker of possibility. Thanks for your help, she says softly, and for listening to me babble about the divorce stuff. I shake my head. I don't mind at all. You've listened to my baggage too. Fair trade. Our gazes hold. A surge of warmth courses through me, something akin to the beginnings of real affection. I gently squeeze her hand. She smiles, then pulls away, glancing toward the house as if to ensure Juliet isn't watching. Driving home, the glow of that small moment stays with me. In the days that follow, we text more frequently. Our conversation topics jump from trivial, best burger joint in town, to serious, how betrayal still haunts us. She asks about my kids. I tell her the truth. They're nearly adults now, distant, though occasional phone calls from Jared surface. I confess my longing to reconcile with them. She listens without judgment. Late one evening, after a grueling day at work, I dial her number. She answers on the second ring, her voice tired yet welcoming. Hey, Ethan, she says. Long day? You can't imagine, I groan. One of my projects got delayed and my manager's panicking. I just needed someone to talk to. I'm here, she replies simply, and those two words feel like a balm. We chat for an hour about everything and nothing. She mentions how Juliet is excelling in her advanced classes but has trouble opening up to new people. I share how I often feel lonely in my townhouse, even though I chose this solitude. At one point, I close my eyes, imagining Michelle across from me, the phone pressed to her ear. The conversation flows so naturally we forget the time. When we finally hang up, it's past midnight, but a sense of comfort settles around me. A few more weeks slip by, and we schedule a proper dinner date at a small Italian restaurant. I pick her up in my Cutlass Juliet, apparently staying with a friend that night. Michelle wears a casual dress, hair curled softly at her shoulders. I can't stop smiling as we drive, the rumble of the engine underscoring our easy conversation. The restaurant has dim lighting, candles flickering on each table, the faint aroma of basil in the air. We settle into a corner booth, sipping water while studying the menu. Michelle looks around, taking in the ambiance. It's been a while since I did something like this, she admits, a slight nervous laugh escaping her lips. Same, I say, my own heart pounding lightly, but I'm glad we're here. We share a plate of bruschetta, then delve into hearty pasta dishes. In between bites, we talk about our past heartbreaks more candidly, no sugarcoating. She confesses moments of self-doubt, how she worried she wasn't worth loving after Brian's affairs. I share how Karen's betrayal left me second-guessing every relationship skill I thought I had. Michelle reaches across the table and rests her hand over mine. "We're both survivors," she says gently. "Maybe that means we know better than anyone else what we want and don't want moving forward." My throat tightens. "I want honesty, kindness, and someone who values loyalty," I say, voice cracking slightly. "I'm tired of mind games." Her eyes shimmer with understanding. I couldn't agree more. After dinner, we walk along the sidewalk, passing shop windows displaying vintage antiques. The nighttime air is crisp. I muster the courage to slip an arm around her shoulders. She tenses momentarily, then relaxes against me. My heart thrums. It's a tentative step toward genuine closeness that I once believed was impossible for me again. Back at her place, we linger in the driveway. The Mustang sits silent, moonlight reflecting off its hood. Michelle's face glows in the faint porch light. For an instant, I consider leaning in to kiss her, but I hesitate, recalling how we both carry scars. She seems to sense my conflict. Gently, she places a hand on my cheek. "It's okay," she whispers, leaning closer. Our lips meet in a delicate, cautious kiss, soft, lingering just long enough to send warmth flooding through me. Then she pulls back, eyes bright. "I should go in," she murmurs, glancing at the house. "Juliet's probably asleep, but I don't want to worry her." "I understand," I say, still breathless. "Thanks for tonight." She squeezes my hand one last time, then slips inside. I stand on the porch for a moment, a slow grin spreading across my face. For the first time in years, hope feels tangible. The slow-motion reel of my life speeds up another notch, guided by the realization that maybe I can open my heart again and not regret it. Driving home, headlights illuminating the quiet streets, I replay the evening in my mind. The easy conversation, the comforting hand over mine, that gentle kiss. Karen's betrayal once overshadowed everything, but now, Michelle's presence reminds me I can still crave connection and trust. It's a fragile start, but one that stirs me awake from the emotional numbness I wore like armor. Before bed, I text her, "Thank you for a wonderful evening." A minute later, my phone lights up with her reply, "Thank you for reminding me I can still enjoy life." I fall asleep with a faint smile on my lips, the glow of possibility lingering. Months of steady companionship with Michelle unfold like a quietly evolving tapestry. We find comfort in shared routines, weekend brunches at a local cafe, evening drives in our respective classic cars, or cozy nights in my townhouse watching old comedy specials. Her presence has eased the lingering pain from my divorce, though it doesn't erase it. It shows me that heartbreak doesn't have to define the rest of my life. Juliet grows more at ease with me, though her trust is cautious. She's protective of her mom, occasionally throwing me a subtle glare if I show too much affection in front of her. But as the weeks turn into months, she jokes with me more often, even asking for help with a school project on engine mechanics, an area I happily talk about for hours. One evening, after Juliet heads to a friend's house, Michelle and I settle on her couch with a pizza. She leans against me, absent-mindedly running her fingers along my arm. My heart flutters at the simple intimacy. She glances at me. "It's been almost a year since we met at that car show." I blink, realizing time has slipped by quickly. "You're right. Feels both shorter and longer, you know?" She nods, eyes distant. I never thought I'd get close to someone again. After Brian, I was convinced love was more trouble than it was worth. Her expression softens. "But you've changed that perspective for me." My chest tightens with a swirl of emotions. I stroke her hair gently. "You changed mine too, Michelle. I was stuck in bitterness. You pulled me out." We share a quiet, heartfelt moment, the hum of the TV in the background. Suddenly her phone buzzes. She checks it, sighs. "Work stuff, but I'll handle it tomorrow." She silences it and turns to me. "Let's make tonight about us." The comment stirs a warm contentment in me. We finish our pizza, chat about random topics, her job at the law firm, my ongoing engineering projects. Eventually, the conversation drifts to something we've both skirted around, the future. Michelle hesitates. "I know we've talked vaguely about living arrangements. Juliet's finishing up her junior year soon. She asked me if we'd ever move in with you. My heart jumps. She asked that? She did. But I told her we haven't really discussed it in detail. Michelle studies my face. We've built a comfortable pattern, me and Jewel here, you in your townhouse. But it's not exactly together. I swallow, gathering my thoughts. I'd like the idea of us living together eventually, but I want to make sure it's what you want, and that Juliet's comfortable. I also don't want to rush anything. Michelle nods. You're right, no rush. But it's nice to think about. She fiddles with a pillow, then looks up with a determined expression. Ethan, do you see us having a long-term future? Because I want that. My pulse quickens. A memory of Karen's betrayal flickers in the back of my mind, but I push it aside. Michelle isn't Karen. She's proven time and again that she's trustworthy, honest, and caring. Yes, I say softly. I do. You, me, Juliet. I want to share my life with you. Her eyes glimmer. Slowly, she leans in and kisses me. The warmth of it conveys mutual relief and unspoken promises. We don't finalize any moves that night, but the seed is planted. Over the next few weeks, we drop hints about combining households, even glancing at real estate listings for curiosity. Then one Saturday, I wake early, heart pounding with a plan. I've decided rather spontaneously that I want to propose. Yes, it's soon in the grand scheme of things, but my instincts tell me it's right. She's proven to be the antidote to my jaded outlook, and I've never felt more certain about anything since my divorce. I call up an old friend, Daniel, who's a jeweler. I need a ring, I say, nerves making my voice quiver. Something elegant, not gaudy. She's not into flashy. Daniel laughs. I got you. Come by the shop. We'll find the perfect piece. By afternoon, I'm holding a small box containing a simple yet graceful diamond ring in a platinum band. My heart thrums. I keep it hidden in my jacket, mentally rehearsing a million ways to ask Michelle to marry me. My biggest worry is spooking her or reminding her of her traumatic first marriage. But if we've learned anything together, it's that honesty is crucial. Fear or not, I should show my real intentions. That evening, I invite Michelle and Juliet to a local barbecue festival. It's bright and bustling, a laid-back environment filled with live music and savory aromas. We munch on ribs, laughter flowing easily among the three of us. Juliet even jokes about how I managed to get barbecue sauce on my shirt. As dusk settles, we wander behind the festival area, where carnival lights twinkle. Michelle looks around, eyes wide with childlike wonder. Didn't know there was a mini-carnival here, she says, spotting a small Ferris wheel. Me neither, I grin, leading them forward. Let's go look. We step onto the Ferris wheel, me and Michelle in one car, Juliet alone in the next. She teased that she didn't want to third wheel, but I suspect she's giving me space. The wheel rises slowly, the fairground lights reflecting in Michelle's eyes. When we reach the top, a hush blankets us, the night sky sprawling overhead. My throat tightens. This moment feels surreal, reminiscent of a teenage romance. Gently, I reach into my pocket and clasp the ring box. Michelle, I begin, voice trembling. She notices, brow furrowing in curiosity. Ethan? I take a breath, releasing my grip on the bar. I never thought I'd do this again after what happened with Karen, but you've shown me that love can be good, honest, worth the risk. Nervous energy crackles through me. I can't imagine my future without you and Juliet. A soft gasp escapes her. Ethan, are you? I open the small box, revealing the ring that catches the Ferris wheel lights. Michelle Baker, will you marry me? Her hand flies to her mouth, tears brimming. For a moment, the world seems suspended, the Ferris wheel humming quietly. Then she nods vigorously, tears spilling over. Yes, she chokes out, throwing her arms around me. Of course, yes. My heart surges with relief and joy. We embrace, the Ferris wheel lurching downward in a slow rotation. When we reach the bottom, we step off with unsteady legs. Juliet is there, looking both mortified and amused by our tear-streaked faces. Michelle flashes her hand, the ring glinting. He proposed, she blurts. Juliet's eyes widen. She stares at me, then at her mom, uncertain. I hold my breath, wondering how she'll react. Then she breaks into a half smile. Congrats, Mom, she mumbles, hugging her. After a beat, she turns to me, her expression guarded but not hostile. Guess you're gonna be my stepdad or something. I manage a smile, voice soft. If that's okay with you, I'd be honored to be part of your family. Juliet exhales, then nods. I'm still processing. But I'm happy if Mom's happy. It's the most open acceptance she's shown me yet. We make our way out of the festival, Michelle clinging to my arm. We're all swirling with emotion happiness tinged with the knowledge of our past wounds. As we reach the car, she glances at the ring again. It's perfect, she whispers. I'm so glad you took the chance. I kiss her forehead, heart brimming. Me too. Back at my townhouse, we celebrate with a late-night toast sparkling cider for Juliet, some chilled champagne for us. The small living room seems to radiate new energy, full of hopeful murmurs about the future. We talk about the wedding in broad strokes, nothing grand. Maybe an intimate ceremony, or a small courthouse event. Juliet heads to the spare room to crash for the night, and Michelle lingers in my arms on the couch, the ring catching the lamp's glow. We speak softly about how we'll navigate blending our lives, remembering the mistakes of our past. She admits she's scared of repeating old patterns. I confess my fear of being betrayed. But we promise to face those fears together, not alone. Eventually, Michelle drifts off against my shoulder, a serene look on her face. I hold her quietly, reflecting on how far I've come from the bitterness of my divorce. The man who once locked his heart away is now risking it all again, but for the right reasons. The slow-motion film of my life now speeds with a sense of warmth and possibility, each frame a testament to the second chance we both dared to take. Our wedding is everything we want it to be, simple, intimate, and free of drama. We choose a weekday morning at the courthouse, just a handful of close friends in attendance. Juliet stands beside Michelle, wearing a pale blue dress and a cautious smile. My own close friend, Jackson, from the engineering firm, serves as my witness. Despite the sparse setting, no grand archways or floral arrangements, the ceremony resonates with heartfelt vows. Michelle's voice trembles as she promises loyalty, honesty, and kindness. My own vow echoes the same, a determined vow that what happened with Karen will never repeat itself in this new marriage. We exchange rings with trembling hands, and the officiant pronounces us husband and wife. Outside the courthouse, we take a few photos, Michelle's eyes shining with tears, Juliet standing to the side, rolling her eyes at the cheesiness yet not protesting the pictures. The moment feels surreal, a quiet victory for both me and Michelle against the shadows of our past. In the weeks following, we merge our lives. Michelle and Juliet move into my townhouse, which we quickly realize is too cramped for the three of us. Boxes crowd the living room. A single bathroom leads to comedic morning bottlenecks. But somehow, we make it work with good humor. Juliet stakes out a corner of the living room for her art projects, taping sketches to the walls. Michelle and I juggle furniture placements, rummaging through what to keep or donate. One evening, Michelle calls me over to the kitchen table, a hint of mischief in her eyes. I've been thinking about something, she says, placing a folder on the table. Inside are printouts of real estate listings. My brows rise. House hunting already? She shrugs. We need more space, and we both have stable jobs. Plus, we could use a fresh start, something that's ours, not just your bachelor pad or my old rental. I flip through the listings. A few modest 3-bedroom houses, each with a small yard. My pulse quickens at the idea of a real home again. I'd love that, I say quietly. I'd have to look at finances, but I think we can manage. From the couch, Juliet chimes in. As long as it has a decent backyard, I want a place to do some art projects outside. Michelle winks at me. You see? She's on board. So our weekends become a quest for a new house. We tour neighborhoods, stepping into empty living rooms and picturing how we decorate them. The mere fact that I can do this house hunt with a new wife, excited instead of terrified, feels like a testament to how far I've come. During one house tour, Michelle and I wander into the backyard while Juliet roams the upstairs. The property is cozy, a single story with a big oak tree shading the yard. Michelle grabs my hand. This might be it, she says softly. It feels like home. I squeeze her hand back. Let's see what the numbers say, but I have a good feeling too. Juliet emerges from the back door, a half-smile on her lips. Mom, you'd have your own bathroom. I'd get the bigger bedroom, obviously. She arches an eyebrow at me in mock challenge. I chuckle. We'll negotiate that. But it's a strong contender. That night, we fill out mortgage paperwork, sipping hot cocoa in the midst of half-unpacked boxes. Juliet sketches at the coffee table, earphones in, occasionally glancing up to add a comment about the house layout. We find ourselves laughing at the random chaos, united in a purpose, forging a true family space. Amid all this, something weighs on my mind. Adopting Juliet, if she'll let me. Michelle hasn't brought it up directly, but I sense it's an important step. I recall how Karen's manipulations once wrecked my relationship with my kids. Now I have a chance to be a loving father figure to someone who's never had that stability. But I won't force it. She's a teenager, old enough to decide for herself. A couple of nights later, I broached the subject with Michelle. We're sitting on the love seat, the faint sound of Juliet's music drifting from the other room. I clear my throat, nerves twisting. Michelle, I've been thinking about something important. She sets aside the mortgage pre-approval papers. What's on your mind? I inhale, meeting her gaze. Adoption. I know Juliet has a biological father, Brian, but if he's not involved, I'd like to step in, legally and emotionally, if you both agree. A flash of emotion crosses Michelle's face. She takes my hand. You have no idea how much that means to me. Brian barely pays child support, never calls. Juliet practically disowned him after the cheating fiasco. She might be open to letting you adopt her, but I don't want to push her if she's not ready. I nod. I get it. I'll only do it if she wants it. But I want her to know she matters to me. Michelle's eyes grow moist. You have a big heart, Ethan. Let's talk to her together. So a few days later, after dinner, we gather in the living room. Juliet senses the seriousness in our tone and lowers the volume on her phone. Michelle takes a breath. Honey, we want to discuss something Ethan adopting you, if you're comfortable. We're not pressuring you. We just care about you, and Brian's basically out of the picture. Juliet's face goes still. She fiddles with her phone, eyes darting between us. Adoption? Like changing my last name or something? Michelle glances at me, then back to Juliet. Potentially, yes, or at least giving Ethan legal parental rights. So if anything happens, he can make decisions, or you have his support officially. It's up to you, though. Juliet exhales, chewing her lip. It's a lot to process. I mean, you guys only got married a few months ago, and I like Ethan, but I'm not sure. My heart aches, but I smile gently. That's totally okay. There's no deadline. I just want you to know I'm here for you, now or in the future. If you decide to let me be your legal dad, I'd be honored. If not, I respect your choice. She studies me for a long moment. Finally, she sets her phone aside. Let me think about it, she murmurs. I'm not saying no, I just need time. We nod in understanding, grateful she didn't shut the idea down outright. Over the following weeks, we finalize the purchase of the cozy single-story house. Packing resumes in earnest this time with the excitement of a shared home on the horizon. We close on the house, sign a flurry of documents, and soon we're unlocking the door to a bright living room with cream-colored walls. Moving day is hectic. Friends from Michelle's law firm help haul furniture, while Juliet unpacks her beloved art supplies. I lose count of how many boxes we stack in each room. By evening, we're exhausted but deliriously happy, sprawled on a new sectional couch with takeout cartons strewn around. Michelle cuddles against me, gazing at the partial chaos. Our home, she breathes. Finally. Juliet emerges from her bedroom, carrying a scribbled sign reading, "Welcome home, family." She tapes it above the hallway entrance, face flushing a bit with embarrassment. It's dumb, but I felt like it needed something, she mumbles. I stand up, voice thick with emotion. It's perfect. Michelle pulls her daughter into a hug, tears glimmering in her eyes. The three of us share a brief group embrace, forging a moment of closeness that transcends any leftover anxiety. The slow-motion film of my life speeds up again, this time bathed in the glow of new beginnings. Over the next week, as we settle into routines, Michelle making coffee in the bright kitchen each morning, Juliet painting a mural on her bedroom wall, me tinkering in the small garage, I'm struck by how normal it all feels. Not the forced normalcy of my old life with Karen, where tension lurked behind every smile, but a genuine warmth and camaraderie. One evening, Michelle and I sit on the back porch, sipping iced tea while the sun sets behind the fence. The faint chatter of neighbors drifts through. She rests her head on my shoulder. "We did it," she whispers. "We found a home together." I brush a gentle kiss on her hair. "Yeah, we did. I never thought I'd be this happy again." A swirl of memories, Karen's betrayal, the bitter custody battles, the solitude rises in my mind, but for once, they don't hurt like they used to. They're simply part of the journey that led me here, to a quiet backyard with a woman who genuinely loves me, and a teenage girl who might one day call me Dad. Michelle squeezes my hand. "Let's keep building from here," she says softly, echoing my own hopes. And so, as night descends, I gaze at the flicker of lamplight in our new home and realize that the heartbreak I once endured is no longer the anchor chaining me down. Instead, it's become the foundation on which I've built a stronger, more honest life, one where trust and love feel not just possible, but deeply real. It's a quiet Wednesday evening when my phone rings, vibrating across the kitchen counter where I've left it while making dinner. Michelle hums softly at the sink, rinsing vegetables for a salad, and Juliet is in her room, likely studying for a big test. I turn off the stove burner, wipe my hands on a dish rag, and glance at the caller ID. My heart lurches Carol. I haven't heard from her in ages. She's in her early 20s now, fully immersed in her own world, rarely reaching out. I pick up, uncertain. "Hello?" On the other end, a familiar voice, though tinged with an adult's steady confidence. "Dad?" Carol says, sounding hesitant. It's been a while." Emotions swirl in my chest, hope, nervousness. "Yeah, it has," I reply softly. "How are you?" She exhales audibly. "I'm good, busy. Look, I'm calling because I have news. I'm getting married." A pause. "His name is Evan. We've been together 2 years and we got engaged last week." A wave of surprise and, oddly, pride floods me. "Married? Wow. Congratulations, Carol. That's huge." My voice cracks on the last word, images of her as a young teen dancing in my mind. "Yeah, I guess so," she says, half laughing. Then her tone shifts, more guarded. "Listen, Mom's been helping me plan, and I know you and I haven't been close, but I still wanted to invite you." My chest tightens at the mention of Karen, her manipulations from so long ago. "I'd be honored to come," I say carefully. "I'd love to see you walk down the aisle." A hesitant silence, then Carol continues. "Okay, the wedding's in 3 months. Mom suggested that Devin, her current boyfriend, should walk me down the aisle, but that doesn't feel right. I wanted to give you the chance, but I'm not sure it's best. It might be awkward." My heart flutters painfully. So Karen's still controlling the narrative, but I swallow the hurt. "I understand. Thank you for telling me. I'll do whatever makes you comfortable." She exhales. "Look, I'm not deciding that yet. I just felt like I should invite you at least. It's at a small chapel near Mom's neighborhood. She insisted we keep it nearby. Could you come?" "I'll be there," I say, trying to keep my voice steady. We exchange a few polite details, dates, times, potential seating arrangements. She sounds a bit distant, as if still unsure about this olive branch. When we end the call, I stand there, heart pounding, phone still clutched in my hand. Michelle notices my shaken expression and shuts off the faucet. "Ethan, everything okay?" I manage a tight smile. "Carol's getting married. She invited me." She steps closer, laying a comforting hand on my arm. "That's good news, right? You've been wanting her back in your life." "Yeah," I murmur, though a swirl of doubt follows. "But Karen's behind the scenes. She might twist things. Carol said something about her new boyfriend or partner walking her down the aisle. It's complicated." Michelle's eyes soften. "I'm sorry, but maybe this is a chance to reconnect. Even if Karen tries to meddle, Carol's grown now. She might see the truth." I nod, hoping she's right. Juliet appears in the doorway, curious. I explain briefly, and she flashes me a supportive grin. "That's huge, Ethan. You should totally go. Show Carol you care no matter what Karen says." Her words offer a surprising flicker of reassurance. "I will," I say. "I want to see my daughter on her big day." Still, a knot of tension lodges in my gut, anticipating a confrontation with Karen after all these years. If I've learned anything, it's that she won't pass up a chance to stir trouble. But the potential upside bridging the rift with Carol outweighs the fear. I decide I'll attend, come what may. Over the next few weeks, invitations arrive formally by mail. A cream-colored envelope with cursive lettering, Carol Maxwell and Evan Porter request the pleasure of your company. The wedding date is set for midsummer. Michelle helps me pick out a suitable suit, and I debate whether to bring a gift or if that might be too forward. We settle on a modest piece of cookware for Carol and her fiancé, hoping it conveys genuine congratulations without overshadowing the awkwardness. One quiet evening, I make my way to the garage to decompress. My old 1972 Oldsmobile Cutlass glistens under fluorescent lights. I recall how restoring this car signaled my shift from heartbreak to determination. Now, I wonder if it will be my ride to Carol's wedding symbolizing how far I've come, even if my daughter never saw that journey. Michelle appears at the garage door, a soft smile on her face. "You all right?" she asks, wrapping her arms around herself against the slight chill. "Just thinking," I say. "Carol's wedding. How it might play out." She steps closer, gently placing a hand on my shoulder. "We'll face it together. You're not alone in this anymore." The warmth of her support bolsters me. I realize how different this is from the days when I fought Karen's manipulations alone. Now I have Michelle and Juliet, a stable new life. If the wedding triggers old wounds, maybe it'll also bring closure. Still, in the back of my mind, I can't shake the sense that Karen's presence will complicate everything. Carol hinted that Karen has a new partner, someone who isn't Devon, presumably. I push aside the anxious thoughts, reminding myself, this is about Carol. Focus on her, not Karen. As the wedding approaches, the tension in my chest intensifies. Carol updates me sporadically by text. A quick mention of flower arrangements, a note about the chapel's location. She never explicitly says who's walking her down the aisle, nor does she mention me taking that role. I decide not to push. Forcing my way in would only confirm Karen's old narrative of me being controlling. Instead, I remain politely supportive. One afternoon, Jackson, my coworker and friend, drops by for coffee. I confide in him about the wedding. He arches an eyebrow. "Think Karen might try something shady?" I huff a half-laugh. "It wouldn't surprise me, but I'm trying not to assume. I just want to see my daughter happy, even if it means swallowing my pride." Jackson pats my shoulder in a rare gesture of sympathy. "You're a good dad, Ethan. Don't let Karen's toxicity overshadow that. Show up, be gracious, and let Carol see who you really are." His words resonate. Despite the fear lurking in my gut, I feel a sense of resolve. Maybe this is the final test, the last hurdle in my journey from betrayal to wholeness. A week before the wedding, Carol calls again, her voice tinged with nerves. "Hey, Dad, just confirming you're coming, right?" "Head count stuff." "I'll be there," I assure her. "Michelle's coming too, if that's okay." A brief hesitation. "Yeah, that's fine," she says, though I sense caution. Maybe Karen's been whispering about how I replaced them with a new family. But Carol doesn't voice any objection. Finally, the day arrives. I wake up early, my stomach twisted in knots. Michelle steadies me with a calming hug. "Breathe," she murmurs, smoothing my tie. Juliet stands by with a small smile, wearing a neat dress. We climb into my Cutlass, the engine rumbling like a loyal friend, and drive to the chapel. My heart thumps as we pull into the lot, spotting clusters of guests milling around. A wave of nostalgia hits me. The last wedding I attended like this was my own with Michelle at the courthouse. A quiet affair. Now I'm stepping into a swirl of old ties and uncertain ground. Michelle squeezes my hand. "You've got this." We enter the chapel foyer, greeted by soft organ music. A few extended relatives blink in surprise to see me. I manage polite nods. My eyes scan for Carol. Then I see her near the back, wearing a simple but elegant white gown, hair pinned up. She catches my gaze, offering a small, tentative smile. I walk over, Michelle and Juliet hanging back to give us space. Carol fidgets with the bouquet, her voice hushed. "Dad, you made it." My chest constricts at how grown-up she looks. I wouldn't miss it, she exhales, glancing sideways. Mom's around somewhere. She has a new partner, Greg, but it's not super serious. Her voice cracks with an undercurrent of frustration or embarrassment. Anyway, thank you for coming. And Dad? I wait, heart pounding. She looks torn, as if waging an internal battle. Finally, she just says, I need to get ready. The ceremony starts soon. I nod, forced to hide my disappointment that she didn't ask me to walk her down the aisle. Okay, I'll be in the pew. She turns away, nerves clearly overriding any deeper conversation. I retreat to Michelle's side, trying not to let the sting show. But Michelle sees it in my face. She touches my arm gently. At least she's acknowledging you. I manage a nod. That's something. We find seats near the middle, watching guests file in. The small chapel fills with murmurs. Up front, Evan stands by the altar, fiddling with his cufflinks. He seems like a nice enough kid, though I haven't met him properly. Karen is nowhere to be seen, though I spot a few people I recognize from the old neighborhood. Suddenly, the organ swells, signaling the procession. My breath catches as the bridal party walks in. Carol appears at the end of the aisle alone. No father figure on her arm, clutching her bouquet, eyes fixed on the altar. The entire chapel stands. Emotions threaten to overwhelm me. She chose to walk by herself, evidently. Yet as she passes my row, her gaze flicks toward me. Our eyes meet for a split second, a swirl of apology, longing, gratitude, all at once. She continues forward, stepping into a future that until recently excluded me. And I'm left in my seat, torn between pride in her independence and the ache of not being by her side. The ceremony begins, the officiant's voice resonating in the chapel's hush. I force myself to focus, ignoring the knot in my throat. Michelle rests a comforting hand on my knee, Juliet leaning forward with cautious interest. I sense we're on the verge of something, though I can't define it yet. Little do I know, the biggest turning point is yet to come. The ceremony starts, smoothly white roses adorning the altar, soft organ music echoing. Carol and Evan stand before the officiant, hands joined. I notice Carol's shoulders trembling slightly, maybe from nerves or emotion. My own breath feels shallow, heart thrumming in my ears. The officiant, an older woman with kind eyes, leads them through the beginning of the vows. Evan recites his part, voice trembling but genuine, promising love and support in sickness and in health. Carol's turn comes next. She smiles, lips parting to speak. Suddenly she falters. Her gaze drifts across the pews, landing on me. A flicker of uncertainty passes over her face. My stomach knots something is off. She glances back at Evan, who gives her a gentle, concerned nod. Then Carol inhales, trying to continue. I, Carol Maxwell, take you, Evan Porter, to be my... She pauses. The words catch in her throat. A ripple of unease stirs among the guests. Karen, seated in a front row, frowns. From my vantage, I see Karen lean forward, lips pressed thin. Her new partner, Greg, looks uncomfortable. Carol's voice wavers. To have and to hold from this day forward, to forsake all others. She stops abruptly, a flash of recognition hitting her, her cheeks pale. To forsake all others, she repeats in a half-whisper, her eyes fixating on some distant point in the chapel, as if recalling a painful memory. I tense. Please, Carol, keep it together. The officiant gently prompts her, whenever you're ready. But Carol's eyes flick to Karen, who stiffens at the attention. A wave of emotion crosses Carol's face, anger, betrayal, maybe guilt. A hush blankets the chapel. Evan's brow furrows in confusion. Carol, he murmurs, stepping closer. Carol's bouquet quivers in her grip. Then she exhales a shaky breath, turning to face the guests. Her voice trembles but rises so everyone can hear. How can I stand here saying these vows about forsaking all others when my own mother... She glances at Karen with tears brimming. Never honored them in her marriage. A collective gasp ripples through the pews. My heart pounds. Michelle tenses beside me and Juliet's eyes widen. Karen stands abruptly, face flushing with anger. Carol, she hisses. This isn't the time or place. But it's too late. Carol steps away from Evan, nearly dropping the bouquet. No, Mom, I can't do this, she insists, tears spilling over. I can't pretend everything's fine when I grew up watching you cheat on Dad, then cheat on Devin, then blame Dad for leaving. I realized I realized I can't say these vows with any honesty if I ignore the fact that you broke them first. The guests stare, frozen in shock. Evan's expression is a mix of alarm and compassion, as if wanting to comfort Carol but unsure how. Karen tries to approach her, but Carol recoils. "Don't, Mom. Don't talk me into a lie. I thought if I married Evan with you in charge of everything, you'd see we could be a happy family. But you're still the same manipulator you've always been." Karen's face contorts with humiliation. She spins toward me, eyes blazing as if blaming me for the meltdown. But I haven't moved. I'm glued to the pew, heart racing, unsure if I should intervene. A hush stretches thin, tension crackling. Carol flings the bouquet aside, steps forward to address the entire chapel. "I can't go through with this wedding, not like this. I love Evan." She glances at him, voice softening. "But I refuse to start our marriage in the same web of denial that destroyed my parents' marriage. I need to clear the air." Tears slide down her cheeks. Karen sputters, "Carol, you're being dramatic. Let's talk privately." Carol shakes her head, voice rising. "No, Mom. I tried to talk to you, but you insisted everything was about you, your new partner, your version of events. You never once said sorry for how you lied about Dad. You never admitted that you turned me and Jared against him to cover your own betrayal." A murmur breaks out in the pews. Some guests exchange astonished looks, while others stare at Karen, disapproving. Evan steps forward, hands outstretched, trying to calm Carol. "Babe, let's step outside if you need to breathe," he suggests gently. But Carol's trembling with pent-up anger and sorrow. She faces the guests, voice cracking. "I'm sorry, everyone, but I can't do this wedding right now. Not until I fix things with my father." Her gaze meets mine, and my chest tightens. "Dad," she calls across the chapel, tearful and raw. "You were right all along. I'm so sorry. Please, please don't leave yet. I need to talk to you." A lump swells in my throat, emotions surging. Michelle glances at me, urging me silently to go to Carol. I stand, heart pounding. People shift to let me pass. Karen shoots me a murderous look, but I ignore it, moving to the aisle. Evan steps aside as I approach Carol. She's trembling, tears streaking her makeup. I gently place a hand on her shoulder. "I'm here," I manage, voice choked with emotion. Carol's face crumples with relief. She clings to me, sobbing into my shoulder. The chapel remains stunned into silence. Karen hovers behind us, anger twisting her features, unsure what to do. After a moment, Carol pulls back, inhaling shakily. "I'm sorry, Dad," she repeats, voice cracking. "I believed Mom's lies for so long, blaming you for everything. I see it now. I see how she manipulated me, and I can't start my own marriage under the same illusions." My eyes burn with unshed tears. I squeeze her hand. "Carol, it's okay. We can talk more whenever you're ready." She nods, turning to Evan, who looks confused but supportive. "I'm sorry, Evan. I love you. I still want to marry you, but not today. Not this way." He gently touches her cheek, heartbreak evident in his gaze. "I understand. I love you too. We'll figure this out." Karen tries to regain control, stepping forward. "Carol, you can't just cancel the wedding. We've spent money. Guests have traveled." Carol whirls on her. "Don't you dare make this about money or convenience," she snaps. "I'm done letting you manipulate me. I need time to fix what I broke with Dad." A hush follows. The officiant quietly closes her book, uncertain. Finally, Carol addresses the guests, voice trembling but resolute. "Everyone, I'm sorry. There won't be a wedding today. You're welcome to use the reception hall if you like. I just can't do this right now." A buzz of murmurs fills the chapel. Some guests stand, stunned. Others begin to gather purses and jackets, whispering sympathy. Karen stands rigid, lips pressed into a thin line. Her boyfriend, Greg, awkwardly places a hand on her shoulder, but she shrugs him off, glaring daggers at me. I stand at Carol's side, feeling like I'm in a dream. She's just turned her entire life upside down in front of everyone, citing Karen's affairs and manipulations as the reason. My heart aches for her, but also brims with unexpected relief. This is the confession I never thought I'd hear. Evan gently escorts Carol out of the chapel, guests parting. I follow at a respectful distance, Michelle and Juliet trailing behind me. Outside, the sunlight is harsh after the dim interior. Carol leans against the stone wall, breathing shakily. Evan stands by her, rubbing her back. "Dad," she murmurs, beckoning me closer. I step in, ignoring the curious stares of onlookers. "I want to talk more. Not here, though." I nod, keeping my voice low. "Of course, whatever you need." She glances at Evan, who gives a pained but supportive nod. "Go," he says softly. "I'll handle the guests. We'll talk later." Carol throws her arms around him in a brief hug, then turns back to me. I guide her toward my car, where Michelle and Juliet wait. The entire fiasco in the chapel feels surreal, like a slow-motion film, every moment etched in high definition. As we drive away from the wedding venue, Carol in the passenger seat, eyes red and puffy, I sense a monumental shift has occurred. Everything Karen wove to separate us is unraveling. And while it's heartbreaking to see Carol's wedding day implode, it also seems like the first honest step toward true reconciliation. I glance at Michelle, who sits in the back with Juliet, offering silent moral support. Carol sniffles, then whispers, "Dad, I'm so sorry." I gently place a hand on her shoulder as I drive. "We'll figure this out. I promise." Neither of us knows exactly what comes next, but for the first time in years, the distance between us feels bridgeable. And in that small fragment of hope, I find the strength to face whatever fallout Karen might bring. We end up back at my home, no, our home. The place Michelle and I share, where Juliet has her own room. Carol stands on the porch in her half-ruined wedding gown, mascara smudged from tears. She's still trembling slightly, as if the chaos of the chapel might follow her here. Michelle steps out of the car behind us, quietly ushering Juliet inside to give me and Carol some space. Carol takes a shaky breath, turning to me. "I can't believe I just did that," she murmurs, wiping at her eyes. "Called off my own wedding, basically humiliated Mom in front of everyone." I gently open the front door, guiding her into the living room. "Come on, let's sit," I say. She slips off her shoes, the train of her dress dragging awkwardly. I help her gather it up before she collapses onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. After a moment, she lifts her head, eyes puffy. "Dad," she says, voice quivering, "it feels like my entire life just flipped. I was so sure I wanted to marry Evan today, but then I remembered your old vow forsaking all others. Mom never honored that, and she blamed you for leaving." She exhales raggedly. I realized I was about to vow something I barely understood because I'd seen it broken by the person I trusted most. My heart aches. I settle onto the couch beside her, giving her space but close enough to show support. "Carol, I wish you hadn't gone through that pain," I say, voice thick with old hurt. "But I'm grateful you finally see the truth. Your mother. She twisted things. I tried to warn you, but..." She nods, tears slipping again. "I was too blind, too defensive. Mom hammered it into me that you were the controlling one, the reason she had to get free. But now I see. She was the one who needed constant validation, stepping out on you, then on Devon." She sniffles, eyes red. "I lived with her version of events for so long, refusing to hear your side. I owe you such a huge apology." My throat constricts, tears threatening to spill. "You don't owe me anything," I manage quietly. "I just wanted you to be happy. I never wanted to lose you or Jared." At the mention of Jared, Carol grimaces. "He's still not close to you, right?" I nod solemnly. "He's off at college now, rarely contacts me. Your mom still has her influence over him, I think. But maybe one day he'll come around." Carol squeezes her eyes shut, fresh tears escaping. "Oh God, Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how much damage Mom did. I was so angry you left. She told me you were a coward who walked out on your family over one harmless night." "But it wasn't harmless, was it?" A bitter laugh escapes me. "No, it wasn't. It was the ultimate betrayal, and she threatened me if I resisted. I left because there was no marriage left to save." My voice shakes with old memories. Then I force a breath, focusing on her. "But let's not dwell on that. You're here now. That's what matters." She leans her head on my shoulder, letting out a trembling sigh. "Dad, I love you," she whispers, words she hasn't said in years. I know I hurt you. I can't change the past, but I want to fix things now. I wrap an arm around her, tears burning. I love you too, sweetheart. I've always loved you. I never stopped. We remain like that for a few minutes. The living room hushed. Eventually, Michelle appears with a blanket and a box of tissues, quietly draping it over Carol's shoulders. Juliet peeks around the corner, concern etched on her features. Carol offers a watery smile, noticing Michelle. "Thank you," she murmurs, wiping her cheeks. Then she glances around the living room, taking in the personal touches photos of me, Michelle, and Juliet at a car show, a painting on the wall. "So this is your new life, Dad?" I nod, feeling a hint of pride. "Yeah. It's not fancy, but it's ours. Michelle and I got married. We've been building a life together." Carol's gaze shifts between me and Michelle. "I'm glad you found someone kind," she says softly, surprising me. "Mom told me you replaced us with another family, but I don't believe that anymore. I see how you never stopped reaching out, sending letters, calls, everything. I was the one who wouldn't listen." Michelle seats herself on the arm of the couch. "I'm sorry if my presence made you feel replaced," she says quietly. "I never wanted to come between you and your dad." Carol's eyes brim with remorse. "It wasn't you. It was Mom's narrative. I was stupid to believe it so blindly." I gently squeeze Carol's shoulder. "Look, what matters is we're finally talking. I don't care how long it took. I just want us to rebuild from here." A faint smile breaks through her tears. "I'd like that. Thank you." She shifts, gathering the train of her wedding gown, now wrinkled from the day's events. "I feel ridiculous wearing this dress after everything. Can I borrow some clothes? I just don't want to see this dress right now." Michelle nods quickly. "Of course. I'll grab some sweatpants and a shirt." She hurries off to our bedroom. Carol closes her eyes, leaning back. "Evan's probably dealing with a storm at the chapel. Mom was furious." I weigh my words carefully. "If you still love him, you two can reschedule the wedding under better circumstances. You deserve a day not overshadowed by old wounds." She exhales a shaky breath. "Yeah, I do love him. He's been good to me. I just realized I wasn't ready to say those vows with Mom's shadow looming." Her eyes flick to me, a hint of vulnerability. "Would you walk me down the aisle? When the time comes?" My chest tightens. I nod, tears threatening. "I'd be honored." She sniffles, relief flooding her expression. Michelle returns with clothes, handing them to Carol along with a glass of water. Carol murmurs thanks and heads to the restroom to change. Sitting there with Michelle, I release a trembling breath, emotions swirling. "Did that really just happen?" I whisper. Michelle nods, eyes shining. "It did." She's finally seeing the truth. We exchange a moment of profound relief. The rift I believed might last forever is closing. Outside, I hear a faint rumble of thunder, as if mirroring the tumult of the day, but a sense of calm also settles in. Carol emerges in sweatpants and a baggy shirt, her hair still pinned up with leftover wedding clips. She looks like the little girl I used to hug after soccer practice. My heart aches with love and regret for the lost years. She settles back on the couch. "Dad," she says, voice steadier now, "I want us to start over, and I want your help planning my real wedding with Evan. But first, I need to figure out how to face Mom. She's going to blame you, I'm sure. She'll say you orchestrated this meltdown." A flicker of old fear crosses my mind. She can say what she wants, but you know the truth now. That's all that matters. Carol swallows, tears brimming again. I do, and I'm done letting her lies control me. A hush falls as Michelle and I exchange smiles of encouragement. Juliet hovers in the hallway, offering a small wave, clearly trying not to intrude. Carol gives her a tentative smile in return. In that delicate silence, I realize how much I've longed for this moment, a reconciliation I never dared hope for. And it's here, raw and messy, but so real I can almost taste the relief. I reach out, taking Carol's hand. "Stay here as long as you need. We'll figure things out together." She nods, eyes brimming. "Thank you, Dad." The simple word Dad carries years of estrangement and heartbreak, but also a newfound promise of healing. This isn't the joyful wedding day Carol once planned, but maybe it's the day she truly broke free from Karen's grasp and found her way back to me. Some weeks pass. The chaos from Carol's canceled ceremony settles, replaced by quieter conversations and gradual mending of wounds. She stays at our home for a while, sleeping on a fold-out bed in the spare room. Michelle and Juliet welcome her gently, giving her space, but also including her in daily life movie nights on the couch, homemade dinners, even a group outing to a local park. We talk about everything: Karen's affair, the divorce, how Carol wrestled with guilt for cutting me out of her life. Bit by bit, we peel back layers of misunderstanding. She confesses how Karen's constant narrative made it seem impossible to question her mother's version. Now, she's rediscovering that the father she lost is still here, ready to love her unconditionally. One morning, Carol announces she's meeting Evan for brunch to discuss rescheduling their wedding. I offer to drive her, but she insists she's ready to handle it on her own. She returns a few hours later, smiling, eyes a bit teary. She finds me in the living room, going over some work documents. "Dad," she says softly, "Evan and I decided to have a smaller ceremony in 2 months. Something low-key, maybe outdoors. I'd like you to walk me down the aisle." My throat closes with emotion. "I'd be honored, sweetheart. Thank you." Her smile trembles. "Also, I invited Mom. I hope you're okay with that." She fiddles with her phone. "She still is my mother, even though she's done horrible stuff." A pang hits me, memories of Karen's manipulation surfacing. But I nod. "It's your wedding, Carol. I respect your choice. I won't let her overshadow your day." She exhales relief. "Good. I just hope she doesn't cause drama." As the weeks pass, Carol and Evan plan a simple outdoor ceremony by a small lake on the outskirts of town. Michelle helps with floral ideas, while Juliet offers to design hand-drawn invitations. She's become quite skilled in art. I mostly stand by, grateful to be included. Carol insists on my presence at each step, a stark contrast to the secrecy of her first wedding attempt. On the big day, the sun shines brightly, a gentle breeze rippling across the lake. Rows of folding chairs line the grassy shore. A small wooden arch draped in wildflowers stands at the front, reflecting off the water. Family and friends gather, a modest group but full of support. I spot Karen arriving quietly with a handful of people likely acquaintances from her past. She looks subdued, wearing a navy dress, her expression tight. She keeps her distance, not approaching me. Greg, her previous boyfriend, is nowhere in sight. My stomach knots, but I push aside the old anxiety, focusing on the joy in the air. Evan stands up front, wearing a relaxed linen suit, smiling nervously. The music begins an acoustic guitar melody. I take Carol's arm at the start of the aisle, heart pounding with emotion. She's in a flowing white dress, simpler than her first one, hair loosely pinned. She glances up at me, eyes bright with gratitude. Together we walk. Each step feels like an echo of the distance we once had, now closing. People rise from their chairs, smiling. Karen sits off to the side, lips pressed in a faint, unreadable line. She meets my gaze for a split second, something like regret in her eyes, but I turn away, focusing on Carol's radiant face. We reach the arch and I place Carol's hand in Evan's. A hush settles. I step back, joining Michelle and Juliet in the front row, a seat of honor. My chest swells with pride and relief. This is how it should have been all along, a father supporting his daughter on her wedding day. The officiant begins, guiding Carol and Evan through the vows. This time, no tremors shake Carol's voice. When she reaches "forsaking all others," her eyes flick to me, and we share a moment of understanding she's reclaiming that vow with honesty. Evan's voice is steady, brimming with affection for her. Applause erupts as they seal their union with a kiss, the guitar resuming a gentle melody. Carol tosses her bouquet to the cluster of friends. Laughter ripples, the tension replaced by genuine celebration. Karen remains seated, clapping politely but with a heaviness in her posture. My gaze drifts to her briefly, noticing how she looks smaller, somehow diminished from the confident woman she once was. A brief pang of pity flickers through me, then fades. The reception unfolds on the grassy slope beside the lake, a few tables with refreshments. People chat, nibble finger foods, and take photos. At one point, Carol corners me near the refreshments table, grin lighting up her face. Dad, thank you for everything. I feel free now. Actually free. I set down my glass of punch. You deserve it. I'm so proud of you. She reaches out, hugging me tightly. I hope Jared comes around too someday. But if he doesn't, I'm going to keep trying. I nod, returning her embrace. Me too. No matter what, I'm here. A little later, Carol and Evan share a gentle, slow dance in the makeshift area near the lake. Michelle and I watch from the side, arms entwined. I spot Karen hovering alone, gazing at Carol with a mixture of sadness and jealousy. My chest tightens once. Karen and I might have stood together as proud parents, but she chose a different path. Suddenly, I feel a tap on my shoulder. It's Carol again, breathless from dancing. Dad, want to have a quick father-daughter dance? Her eyes shine. I know it's not a formal thing, but I missed out on that. Emotion wells up. I'd love to. She leads me to the small dance area. Evan steps aside with a grin. The music shifts to a gentle ballad. Carol and I sway, the lake breeze brushing over us. My chest tightens with gratitude for this moment that seemed impossible once. Thanks for not giving up on me, Carol whispers, eyes glossy. I blink away tears. Thank you for giving me a second chance. We continue the dance, guests watching with soft smiles. Karen stands in the background, arms folded. I sense her regret but stay focused on Carol, not letting old resentment intrude. This is our moment, father and daughter mending a broken past. When the dance ends, applause ripples through the small crowd. I return to Michelle's side, pulse still thrumming. Carol and Evan slip away to greet guests. The sun dips lower, casting a golden glow over the lake, the scene almost ethereal in its beauty. Michelle leans her head on my shoulder. Look at you, she murmurs. Finally getting the father-daughter dance you deserved. I smile, tears threatening again, but they're tears of joy this time. Yeah, I whisper, voice thick. Feels like a real victory. In the near distance, Karen lingers, looking lost. For a second, I feel a twinge of pity. She's surrounded by the consequences of her own actions estranged from me, overshadowed at her own daughter's wedding. But I don't dwell on it. Carol is the one who truly matters here, forging a new chapter with honesty and love. As evening falls, lanterns glow, laughter ripples among friends, and the newlyweds beam at each other. I catch Carol giving me a final wave from across the lawn, a radiant smile that says, "Thank you, Dad." And in that moment, I recognize the full circle. Betrayal gave way to heartbreak. Heartbreak gave way to determination, and now determination gives way to redemption. Nothing can truly erase the pain of the past, but we've found a path forward. True revenge isn't Karen's public downfall, though that happened in its own right. Real victory lies in living well, in forging genuine love and bonds stronger than the lies once told. I pull Michelle into my arms, grateful for the life we share. Juliet snaps a candid photo of us with her phone, capturing this fleeting, precious moment. The scene might fade into memory, but the healing we've achieved will remain cementing that the real triumph is hope, family, and a future done right.